fights with passion, and he inspires.
Are you ready for a war?
All right, welcome back to From 8 Arbitration. It seems like I've been gone forever, doesn't it? It seems like I have been gone forever, but just 1 week. I want to thank Mallory and Cole for stepping in for me last week. I was on assignment in Hawaii, and so I wasn't on. It's Tuesday now. I came back yesterday, but I went to Hawaii, did Tacona, and did some education there, 6-day count training, and we'll do a lot more of that. I'm going to do that again Sunday. I'm going to read for an hour, and then the next Sunday I'm going to do that training that I go over when I go to different places, that 6-day count training. I think it's very good. It's based solely for the city letter carrier about saving minutes. And so next Sunday I'll do these read for an hour, and then the next I'll do that training, okay? But we're going to have a long episode today. I've talked with Tyler Vasser. He's going to be on with some very interesting points from the BFN, Build a Fighting NELC, and talking about kind of where they're headed, their movement, and I'm all for it. I think that they're fantastic. Y'all know how I feel about Tyler Vasser. And so he's on for about an hour. On the other side of that, I'm going to be on for about an hour. So you're going to have a long episode. I'm going to talk a little bit now, and then I'm going to give it over to Tyler, and then I'll come back on the back end of that, okay? But I wanted to thank Cole and Mallory for stepping in for me. I went to Kona, like I said, did some education, and then stayed a couple of days, flew into Nevada, and drove up to, got a rental car, drove up to Utah and spoke at their state convention, which is absolutely wonderful. That place is gorgeous. Now, Kona was amazing. It looked beautiful. You'll never see anything like that. And then you get into Utah, and those mountains and the hills and how pretty all that was, spectacular. But Brother Rodriguez asked me to come up there. He was the state president and asked me to come up there and speak, so I did. And anytime I can talk with my people, I love it. I'm going to do it. I love seeing my people, being around my people. I love the city letter carrier, and so that was a fantastic time. And so I thanked him. I thank him right now, again, for having me up there. And it's a fantastic thing because he says they normally have about 40 people, and they had over 90. And so you could tell the enthusiasm of the people that were getting involved, new shop stewards, winning trophies for being shop stewards, the things that they had done. And so it was a fantastic time seeing my people, seeing the enthusiasm of those new stewards coming up, talking to me, and some great stuff. And we're just getting started. And so went from 40 to about 90 something, which is encouraging. So did that, and then drove back into Los Angeles. And the CLC had a function there. That was the COP. I'll talk a little bit about that. And your Lioness President, Brian Renfro, we'll talk about that when I come back on the other side of it. But I wanted to thank Chris Reed. He took us everywhere, my wife and I, on the island of Kona. He lives there. He's from there. And he was able to take us everywhere. And I cannot thank him enough for everything that he did for me. Meeting all of his people. They had a cookout on that Saturday night. This Sunday they made a breakfast, and a fantastic time with my people. I love the city letter carrier. And so Chris Reed, a fantastic individual, a huge union person, an advocate, and loves the city letter carrier. And I can't wait to see what's in store for him in 2026 when the CLC takes over and he gets a bigger role, because that guy is all about it. And he's very passionate about the city letter carrier. So I'm going to turn it over to Tyler. Now, I've got a few things. I may go ahead and do these announcements now and not on the other side, because when I get on the other side of it, we'll talk about two things specifically about called for Renfro's resignation. I still call for that. People are talking about a charge. I kind of talked a little bit on Next Generation Letter Carriers podcast. I'll talk about that some more. They talked about the charge. We called for his resignation. I still call for his resignation. He needs to do the right thing and just get the fuck out, because he's a failure. He's failed us. He's failed himself. He's failed his family. He's pathetic. And so we need him to step down, and he should do the right thing and do that and save us from having to vote his sorry ass out next year, which we will do if he doesn't step down. But we'll talk about that on the other side, okay? And so a few shout outs. April 15th, and somebody asked me to shout this out. April 15th in Roanoke, Indiana. James Henry will be there. I'll be there. Walter McGregory, who's campaigning for business agent, will be there. It says, join us and meet with James Henry to learn about his vision for the future of the NELC. April 15th at 7 p.m. Meeting to be held at the UAW Union Hall, 582 East North 900 North. I believe that's what it says, 582 East 900 North, Roanoke, Indiana, 46783. And then we'll be going together on April 16th to another one. And so that will be next week. If I get more details, I'll read those out next, this coming Sunday when I do my just reading for an hour. So I'll do that. NELC Branch 897 Family Outing, Cleveland Metro Parks Zoo. Thursday, June 19th, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Juneteenth National Holiday. Join your local Union Branch 897 for a family day outing at the Cleveland Zoo. We'll be covering the cost of admission for all dues-paying members, their spouses, and children as well. We'll also cover up to 2 guests for those without children. The Union will also be providing a buffet lunch at the Nature Nook Pavilion inside the zoo at 12:30 p.m. You must RSVP by Sunday, June 1st. By emailing the names of adults and children attending to NELCBranch897@gmail.com. And also you may call, text questions or concerns to Branch President Jamie Lukens at 330-819-0063. I'll read all that again. I'll be at this thing. I'm going up there for it. So it's NELC Branch 897 Family Outing, Cleveland Metro Parks Zoo, Thursday, June 19th, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., Juneteenth National Holiday. Join your local Union Branch 897 for a family day outing at the Cleveland Zoo. We'll be covering the cost of admission for all dues-paying members, their spouses, and children as well. We'll also cover up to 2 guests for those without children. The Union will also be providing a buffet lunch at the Nature Nook Pavilion inside the zoo at 12:30 p.m. You must RSVP by Sunday, June 1st by emailing the names of adults and children attending to NELC Branch 897@gmail.com. And also you may call, text questions or concerns to Branch President Jamie Lukens at 330-819-0063. And so those will be the announcements for today. I'll have some shout outs Sunday. Also remember, get on from8arbitration.com. Show Mallory some love. I'm always going to say that on every episode because she does so much for me. And so get on there, show her some love. Like we say, this little tip jar on there. You'll see that first thing when you get on From 8 Arbitration. She keeps this thing afloat, spends endless amount of hours putting things up for y'all to educate and help y'all educate yourselves when you're looking at case files, looking at arbitration sites. She does all that. And so she maintains that website. I can't thank her enough. I wish I had $1 million I could give her because she's invaluable. So get on there, give her some love, and you'll see that the first thing when you get on from 8arbitration.com, okay? When we come back, I'm going to talk about filing a charge, where we're at with that, what are we going to do? And your sorry lowdown executive council and resident officers and the things that they've done here recently. I'm going to talk a little bit about that, a little bit about your COP, your Lioness president, and then I'm going to kind of tell I've not been on my own podcast to talk about accepting the position of EVP, Executive Vice President. And so I'm going to talk about that, kind of where I'm at, what I'll be doing as Executive Vice President, what I'm going to do immediately, and then the things that I'm going to be over. And so I think that'll be encouraging to y'all to know that help is on the way. We are coming. We are coming. And when we get there, there's going to be drama. And I can promise you that. So look forward to talking about that on the other side of it. Right now, Tyler Vasser. We talk for about an hour, and then I'll come back on the other side. All right? Y'all take care. All right, I got my man Tyler Vasser on. Been wanting to come on and talk a little bit about the going zones. He's been busy as always. You see him everywhere. Anytime you look on social media, there's my man's face doing something. And so I said, man, you got to get back on here and talk to the people and tell them what's up. So, my brother, how are you?
Hi, Corey. I'm doing good. How you doing?
Good. Good. Looking good, man. You're looking
Thank
fresh and good.
I just shaved, actually. Just trimmed the beard a little bit. It's good to be back on. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. You know me. You can come on anytime you want to, brother. You got a standing invitation. So, you want to talk to the people, man? I'm gonna let you have at it. If I got any questions afterwards, I'll ask. But if not, we'll call it a wrap. But brother, it's all yours. All right.
Sounds good to me. Thanks.
All right,
Yeah,
buddy.
I think the last time I was on here, what was it, earlier mid-February? It was after the no vote results came out. And so obviously it's been what, 2 months, but it feels like it's been a year since then with all everything that's happened. So I wrote down a few thoughts just to kind of keep my thoughts sort of organized, but I guess I'll just jump right in. We're coming off of what was it, a couple weeks ago, the March 23rd rallies. Those were the biggest day, and I've got my critiques of them as well, but just to put out there to begin with, that was the biggest day of nationally coordinated public actions in NELC in over a decade, as far as what I've been able to see. The last time we had that many people organized to protest with public actions on the same time and same day, I believe was the fight to preserve the 6-day delivery back in 2013. And so there were over 200 rallies across the country, thousands of NELC members in the streets in front of federal buildings and post offices and street corners. And I really believe that every NELC activist, for the weakness of the approach coming out from Renfro and the national leadership in terms of the messaging, which I'll get into in a second, I really believe that every reform-minded NELC member needed to be a part of these rallies and help build them. Because we got to remind ourselves, it was only under the pressure, it was only under pressure from us, from the membership, from the open bargaining fight, from the previous calls for national rallies, from the massive no vote. It's only because of that these rallies happened in the first place. It's something we've been arguing for forever, that the union needed to coordinate these actions on a national level. And so, in my opinion, the threat of privatization is real. Yes, they've been talking about it for 40 years, but just look at what's happening. If there was ever a time that privatization was on the table, it's right now. And privatization would be as a disaster for postal workers and the communities that we serve. But at the same time, Corey, I really think we can't just talk about saving the post office as it currently exists. What have we talked about over the last year together? What have you been preaching about for years on this podcast? And what is CLC fighting for? What is BFN fighting for? We clearly can't just save the post office as it currently exists. We have to fight for a post office that works for postal workers and the communities that we serve, which is why in Branch 9 in Minnesota, because it was multiple Twin Cities branches that organized a rally here, we talked about and we linked the need to fight privatization to the need for a strong contract. We need those two things are linked. You can't just say save the post office and keep it all the same. I don't know. I wonder what you think about that.
Yeah, It's funny you say that because I was just reading. I'm going to talk a little bit later on. I'm going to do an episode after you're on about the national arbitrator, the Nolan decision, and that's kind of what the post office says. They're talking about it. Uh, it says based on the relevant evidence, there is no credible basis either as a matter of comparability or a pattern for a net increase in the economic terms of the TA. Indeed, the evidence supports lowering the TA's overall economic impact. That's management in front of National Arbitrator Nolan. And so, yeah, that's funny you said that because I was just reading that. You're spot on. We're talking about we need drastic changes to the Postal Service for us to survive. I think everybody agrees with that. The way that we're doing business right now is not sustainable because to me, I've always said, get in the books, that sounds good, get in the books to see where this money's going. I think Postmaster General did that for us when he was leaving. He kind of outed everything. Remember, he was saying, "Here's all the billions right here.
Yep.
look at Congress. Look at this. Look at that. There's where all the billions are going." And obviously, we failed to bring that up in front of Nolan because to me, I think we stipulated that decision, and he kind of pissed on us. But yeah, I think you're spot on, Tyler. If we're going to do change, we got to make change. I mean, we're the status quo. This regime is the status quo. Status quo 1.3. Everything's the same, and we're sitting there saying, "Hey, man, we need major change." So yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, and I think there was lots of skepticism online and even in person at the stations that I saw from members that thought NELC President Brian Renfro was just using these rallies as a bait and switch to say, oh, don't worry about the contract, we got to fight privatization, as opposed to we have to fight any attempt at privatization and fight for a contract. And so,
Yeah,
in my opinion, members are they're right to feel that way because I think it's true that Renfro used these rallies to go into arbitration and to show management that in his point of view, we're bargaining in good faith. Look at what we're doing out in the streets. But it's also true that can be true at the same time that if we really want to fight attempts to privatize the postal service, we do need to get organized. We do
Yeah.
need to alert the public. We do need to win them over to our side, and we need to fight. And so BFN called, like I said with Branch 9 and BFN nationally, called for the need to link fighting for a strong contract to fighting privatization. To do otherwise, cleared the ground for Renfro and his supporters to have full control over the messaging and ultimately
Yeah.
weaken the rallies. It ultimately did kill turnout, in my opinion. And so I really think the entire reform movement needed to get behind this. BFN, CLC, Cariff's campaign, reform-minded NELC activists really needed to be at these rallies to push to connect these two ideas. And if your local leadership shut it down, you couldn't have it as part of the official program, bring it up, try to get a speaker up there, bring it up in a speech, have conversations, put it on signs, put it in chants. I really believe this idea that we don't always get to choose the terrain that we fight on. But we always have to look for every opportunity to fight, to get our ideas out there. Otherwise, you cede the ground to Renfro and the current administration, and you get members who sit it out and don't participate in it and think it's a hoax. We have to counter that actively. And so, I don't think it's a coincidence at the Minnesota State Capitol, Branch 9 in Minneapolis, Branch 28 in St. Paul, 2942 in Hopkins, which is like the western suburbs, and 440 in Rochester, all co-hosted the rally here. We connected those two ideas, fight for a strong contract and fight privatization. The two ideas are linked. We had about 500 people in attendance. As far as from the pictures that I saw, it was one of, if not the biggest rally in the country. And I think that's partially because we've organized a couple rallies now. We know how to we have more and more people getting involved. We know how to organize these rallies successfully, but I really think that messaging played a big role in getting members out. So
Yeah, that's funny. I think after the TA, obviously everybody knows Renfro's out. He's gone.
oh yeah.
He was on life support. And then you have the new administration come in and give him that little lifeline where he can deflect everything off of, man, I just got smashed in this TA. The new administration must talk about there's certain parts of the postal service that he thinks need to be privatized. You have this article come out from that newspaper, the magazine, and then people start asking Trump about the postal service. And I think that was the biggest gift he's ever been gotten is that them start talking about that. And he started deflecting off of the TA onto, hey, we got to save the postal service here. We got to say, so I do believe he was on life support. He's going to lose. I mean, everybody,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
you're hearing things, even his own party, even the people that are around him, the closest to him are leaving and starting to talk about running for their own ticket, on their own ticket, getting away from him. Everybody's trying to scatter away from Renfro. But it's just that was that life support, that lifeline that he needed with that little hint of privatization. And yeah, he kind of took that and ran with that and said, "Hey, forget about the TA. How I fucked you over. What about what they're saying?" And so he did kind of change the narrative, as you were saying, of that. You're also talking about forcing them to fight. I had that episode where I was saying that the city letter carrier had to throw him into the ring to fight for us. It's out of
Hmm.
his element. He doesn't understand that part of unionism, how unions work. You have to be that aggressive militant. We had to throw his ass in the ring to fight for us,
Hmm.
and it's the city letter carrier at the end of the day that's going to save the day. And it's unlike anything I've ever seen. This movement of city letter carriers finally standing up and saying, "Y'all have failed us. The postal service has failed us.
Hmm.
Nobody's helping us. Nobody's protecting us. We will do this ourselves." Y'all are a perfect example of that, Tyler, the BFN. We will do this ourselves because y'all are incapable of protecting us, of helping us. And so it's unlike anything I've ever seen where you had to throw your president into the ring to fight for you. I've never seen that before. You see Fain and O'Brien and all these out there just raising hell, and here's ours. Lost as hell, but yeah, I mean that's a great point on that as far as kind of the deflection.
Yeah, I think well, I mean, I'm really glad you brought up Sean Fain of the United Auto Workers and Sean O'Brien, the two Seans, Sean O'Brien of the Teamsters. I think we could have a whole episode here just talking about the positives and negatives, the successes and the mistakes that they've made over the last couple of years. Obviously, 2023 was a big year for contract wins for the UAW in particular. But the point is, they have leadership who are actually not just rhetorically saying they want to fight, but have actually organized and actually put up a fight that didn't come out of nowhere. I mean, the UAW, the United Auto Workers, was the standard setter of I don't know of the labor movement for decades. They were the standard bearer of the labor movement, where they had the best contract that everyone would strive for, and a rising tide lifts all boats. The UAW played that role for decades, from when they were first founded and built in the 30s and into the 40s and well into the 70s and 80s. Obviously, that's when it became complicated. Our own union has a wonderful history in that time, as well as having to deal with a difficult period, and especially in the 80s onward. But the point is, in recent memory, both the UAW and the Teamsters were not, even though they have a wonderful history, they were not known as the unions that were really putting up a fight. It was out of the UAW, there was a whole number of their national leadership who actually are in prison because they were colluding with management and taking bribes. And it was out of that a rank and file caucus called UAWD, the United All Workers for Democracy, got organized, similar to what BFN's trying to do, or what CLC's doing, got organized within the union and won one member, one vote. They didn't have one member, one vote until I can't remember what it was, 2018 or 20, something like that. And then 2020 might have been, but they won one member, one vote, and then they got Sean Fain elected. The Teamsters in 2018, the Teamsters at UPS, the members voted down their contract, similar to what we just did. It's eerily similar. They voted down their contract, and then there was something in the Teamsters Constitution that if less than 50% of the membership turn out, that the leadership can impose a contract. And so it was like 48 or 49% voter turnout, just like our TA, which was a huge turnout compared to previous years. But the Teamsters voted down the contract, but because of this stipulation in their constitution, Jimmy Hoffa Jr. forced through the contract that the Teamsters at UPS had just voted down. And it was off the backs of that a movement was organized within the Teamsters to kick him out and get O'Brien elected. And so I mean, the similarities are
It's weird, and it's because you hear that story, and I think that was up online the other day, and I'm like, damn, that's a carbon copy of what's fixing to happen here. You talk about
exactly.
a lot of people talk about division, and people that are divisive, us, y'all. We're bringing this division into the union. They don't believe in groups within the NLC like the CLC and the BFN. And how do you bring about change, Tyler, if it's not for those groups? When you talk about those individuals for UAW Teamsters, it says, we're not going to take it any longer. We're not
Mhm.
going to take this any longer. We will start a movement ourselves and take back over this union from the corruption, from those that have been neglectful of the carrier. And so I think that they're critically important to have those movements
Absolutely.
say, we're not going to take this any longer. As city letter carriers, we're not going to take this any longer, where our union is failing us over and over again. They've circled the wagons around a lame duck president to continue to
Mhm.
try to help him out. And yeah, I think that they're vitally important, these movements that
Oh,
people
yeah.
say are divisive. How else do you make change if it's not for those groups like BFN, CLC? I do not agree with those people that said, we don't need those groups in the NLC. We need to just get together. We tried that. And in
Mhm.
the last convention, they shown, you were there, you spoke, they shown what they were about. They're not
Mhm.
interested in change. They're not interested in representation. They're interested in the status quo. And so, yeah, I believe those groups are critically important to say, we're not taking this shit any longer. And
Yeah.
we're going to take over this union and make change. There will be books written about what's happening right now with the NLC, just like
Mhm.
you heard of back in 1970 with the main man, Vince Sombrado, got that movement going. He got a movement going. The
Yeah.
concerned letter carriers,
Yep.
I believe was that group's name. And
Mhm.
so, yes, it's critical when your union is failing you, when there's no hope, to have those groups say, hey,
We're going to bring hope. We're going to bring things back how they should be. And that's what you're seeing right now. 20 years from now, they'll be talking about this very thing. The TA,
Exactly.
just like they did back in the 70s, the TA,
Hmm.
failed leadership. Renfro will go down as the worst president in the history of the NELC. They'll have those talk about how the establishment protected him, circled the wagons around him, and got crushed in the next election. They'll have things, songs will be written about that, and they'll be singing songs about Tyler Vasser. And
Oh man. I think I mean, yeah, to me that's an argument that a question of, oh, you're being divisive. That is an argument made out of desperation, in my
yes,
opinion. Because
yes,
we're not trying to organize a separate union. That's not what
yes,
CLC is. That's not what
yeah,
BFN is. We have, like you said, with Vince Sombrado, we have a rich history within our own union, not to mention the broader labor movement of of internal caucuses, reform caucuses, or slates, reform slates, a leadership team being put together to run for leadership. I think both are vital. We need to obviously change the leadership, but we need to get the rank and file active and involved in something. It's not enough to say just go to a general membership meeting and get involved. We're not just our unions are not just a branch in one city. We're a national organization. We're a national union. We have to get to try to change the union. You can't just say I'm opposed to this. I'm opposed to Renfro. I'm opposed to this TA. You have to say what you stand for. And to me that means coming up with some ideas, demands, coming up with a broader program, how you want to fight for those demands. That means getting organized. That means building a caucus or building a group, building a movement. Fighting for these ideas in an organized way, getting connected with hundreds and thousands of members across the country who want to do the same thing. And so, yeah, I mean, it's worth addressing, but to me, it's such a silly argument that is made out of desperation. And I think, yeah, I really want to say, attending a GMM is obviously that is the role, that is the goal of BFN, is to turn people to the union. We want, in almost all cases, we want people to fight for our ideas in the union structures. We want to push the union to take up these things. In Branch 9, we got some pushback when we first started trying to get organized a couple of years ago. And I know I made some mistakes myself. I came in too hot. I didn't have my ducks in a row. I mean, if you can imagine, and so I got shut down a number of times, but after a while and persistence and making it about the issues, not making it a personal attack or a battle of personalities, we've now, our reform slate took the leadership of Branch 9. We built a basis of support amongst the membership for our ideas. We have a long way to go, but we've at least started those things. We always have argued, go through the union structures, take back our union. It's a very simple idea.
yeah, yeah. And it's critical to understand that BFN is not anti-union.
Yeah,
Uh, they're anti-establishment as far as the establishment is now, because
that's
the
right.
establishment as it is now is not pro-city letter carrier. It is
That's right.
pro-establishment. And I said years when I first started this thing, when I saw that the union was where it was headed, where it's going, I said it's not the of National Association. It's the National Association of Letter Carriers for a reason. They're here to
Mhm.
represent us, not themselves. And when that happens, here you have a BFN. When that
That's right.
happens, when the city letter carriers have no hope, you see them getting out in droves, and I've begged them, do not get out of the union. You cannot get out of the union. You have no vote if you get out of the union. But when you have
Mhm.
those times of desperation, when the letter carrier says, we have nowhere to go, we've been abandoned, you have BFN come up and say, hey, we're going to make a difference. We're going to make a change. You may say you were a hard charger when it first started out, but your name got out there immediately as somebody, hey, there's this little rapscallion up there up north that's, that's making some waves. The establishment will always be against that. They will always try to tell you to, hey, settle down, little fella, settle down. And that's how they will always be. And you rose up against them in the national convention in Boston. When you stood there in the face of that, I say it every time you're on here, I respected the shit out of that, because you took on the establishment in front of thousands and thousands of people. There's Tyler Vasser standing there in the face of it because our union has abandoned us as is. There will be change in 26. Everybody knows it. Everybody knows Renfro is out. Those
Oh yeah.
that have supported him, gone. People know that. But BFN is critical. Y'all's message is critical. That we're not going to sit down any longer and kiss the ring. That's just not how it's going to be. We're not. We'll take the ring and shove it up your ass. That's how the BFN has been saying we're going to have we're going to have a movement for the city letter carriers, by the city letter carriers, that we demand more from our union. And yeah, so everything that y'all have done, man, is spot on to me. Y'all are growing. You got different little sections coming out here and there.
Mm-hmm.
The word is still getting out about BFN. You're relatively new,
Mm-hmm.
but you're everywhere. You're on, anybody that will listen, you're on every kind of podcast, every kind of social media. Those I can't remember the one you're always on. Help me out with that. The one
Is
that
the
I was
Valley
on.
Labor Report?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Always
Yeah.
out there spreading the message of the city letter carrier. That's not anti-union. You're out there spreading the message we can do better. That's not anti-union. That's not being divisive. That's a matter of fact.
Mm-hmm.
You're out there spreading the message. We need an alternative to what we've got now. We have a no strike clause. I know that y'all are huge on we got to have some kind of avenue to address being shit on.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you want to talk about that, talk about that. If you don't have to. But,
Would love
you know,
to.
be it, yeah, BFN, when we say build a fighting in ELC, and people are getting sick of hearing me say this, Tyler, but again, as somebody I've been doing this 32 years. I've been a shop steward since 2006, have busted my ass for the city letter carrier. My branch is one of the strongest there is. I got a president that I'd put up against anybody in Dana Chambliss. My formal name, I mean, my God, is, Jason Leith, JB,
Mm-hmm.
probably the baddest dude there is. So I wasn't privy to everything that was going on. I wasn't privy to all this stuff nationwide. It was just a shit show. And so here y'all come. So kind of tell about where you're at, where you're going, what do you want? You never heard a need to strike. I never thought there was a need for us to strike. And you look at us. You
Mm-hmm.
look at the TA. Look at what Renfro did to us. What alternative do we have?
That's right.
So, talk to us. What you got?
Yeah, I think before I get into that, I want to say even the best, I think I've said this before with you, even the best of organizations, whether it's a political party or a union or the bowling league down the street or whatever, even the best of organizations need regeneration, need reform, need transformation. As the generations are transferring from one to the other, as the world around us is changing, how we orient to that and how we develop ourselves needs to change. And it means taking the best of the memory and the history of our union in this case with the fresh ideas of the newer generation and combining them to debate and discuss and fight for the best path forward. Every organization needs that. No one is safe from that. That is part of what's being a human. That's part of what is getting together with other people and organizing. You need to, you're never set 100%. You always need to do that. And so that's part of what BFN is, part of what CLC. This is what we're trying to do. We're trying to retake this union and put it back on the footing that it was. Make the letter carrier job the job that it was known to be, in past decades when people were really envious of, oh man, you got a job at the post office, you're living good. But I also just want to say, individuals alone can't do it. You can't do this alone. I can't do this alone. That's why we're in a union. Otherwise, if I believed that, I wouldn't be a union member. And so I think that's part of the why transitioning over into talking about BFN. That's why we've built. This isn't just the Tyler show. We're trying to build BFN, and there's plenty of, I mean, dozens, if not hundreds. I mean, I've met personally dozens and dozens, but hundreds of people who identify as being a part of BFN or members or supporters who have wonderful ideas, better ideas than me in many ways, who are more talented than me in many ways. We have our coordinating committee, which is our national leadership for BFN, are fantastic people that I'm encouraging them to get on different podcasts. So that's not just me talking, that people know, hey, oh, this is a real thing. There are dozens of people that are getting on these podcasts who are part of BFN, who are putting forward good ideas. But as BFN, as Build a Fighting NELC, we've been in an all-out sprint for the last 6 to 8 months, really the last year. But going into the convention, the fight for open bargaining, Remember that this time last year? That feels like a lifetime ago. The fight
It
for open
does.
bargaining, the
Yeah.
preparing for the 2024 National Convention in Boston, the October 14th contract rallies that we did. Then we had the Branch 9 leadership election. That took a lot of energy away from us here locally. And then the Vote No campaign. And then the March 23rd rallies. I mean, there has barely been a moment for rest in between all these things. And so now we've had a really good discussion on our coordinating committee. And we also have had a couple Zoom meetings to discuss it with, the broader membership and supporters of entering our next phase as the reform caucus, as the rank and file caucus that we're trying to build to consolidate on and the gains that we've had made over the last year. We have chapters that have started or are in the process of starting in around a dozen places, and that's me being rather conservative with that number. But we want to professionalize our social media, our finances, officially set up a bank account so that we can, right now we just don't we fundraise as we go for what we need, but we want to set up professionalize our social media, our finances, start an internal education process to a study group. We have a member, Mara, who's really excited. I'm really excited for her. Excited to start off like, let's read the book Undelivered, which is all about the NELC leading in postal unions going into the 1970 strike, coming out of it. Let's read that book chapter by chapter. Let's read Secrets of a Successful Organizer. Let's read No Shortcuts. These sorts of union organizing books as a group and do some education along along the
Yeah.
way, being ready to pivot to fighting privatization. I think right now Trump's got his hands full with the tariffs and all this other stuff. I think the Postal Service is low on his list, but we need to be ready to pivot to fighting that, when that comes. But ultimately, we want to consolidate on the gains that we've made as a group over the last year and prepare for the battles ahead in 2026. And I've got I'm sure there's more to it, but the contract ends in May. Then in June, there's the Labor Notes Conference, which I really want CLC to be a big part of mobilizing to. I know that Richie Ray out in Branch 41 has participated in some Labor Notes events out in New York City, which is fantastic. But the Labor Notes, it's a conference of union activists from across the labor movement that get together and discuss lessons and share reports and stuff like that. So we got the contract that ends in May, the Labor Notes Conference in June, which I'd love to see 100 NELC members at, the National Convention in August, and then the national leadership elections, is it in November, the leadership
Yeah.
elections? So those are all the things happening in 2026.
Yeah.
And we need to prepare, we can't just be loose forever. We need to really come together, discuss the lessons of what we've learned over the last year from all the things I mentioned, and prepare for the battles ahead. And this is the key point here. And what I think BFN we'll have a broader program and broader ideas and ready to organize around specific local issues. The key demand that we will be fighting for in going into that convention and even coming out of it if necessary is fighting for the right to strike, as you've alluded to. And before I get into what I mean by that and what that'll look like, I just want to be clear with people because there's lots of fear, rightfully so. People are afraid, hey, isn't it illegal? Like, you can't bring up the S word. It's kind of the forbidden word at union meetings. If you've ever heard, an unknowing young member get up who's fired up and mentions it, it gets shut down pretty quick. But NELC, and I can share the link to this lawsuit with you if you're interested. But NELC sued USPS in 1969 to prove that we have the First Amendment right to advocate for the right to strike. So we have that right. We won it in a lawsuit, and I've done tons of research and not seen a single case of any letter carrier being criminalized or fired for advocating for the right to strike. You have the First Amendment right to do so. NELC has on the books as an official position support in some form for the right to strike, passed at the 1968, 1970, 1972 conventions. I still got to write in and get the exact wording on there, but we have on the books in some form support for the right to strike. If it was illegal for NELC to advocate for the right to strike, our union would have been disbanded 50 years ago. So just to make people clear, we have the right to advocate for this. What we
Yeah.
need now is a real campaign to fight for it. I think we need to do what we did with open bargaining. We want to get resolutions passed in branches across the country for the right to strike, and BFN's going to come out with what exactly we think that language should look like and what that campaign should look like. Going into the 2026 convention, we got 20 or 30, something like that, branches to pass open bargaining resolutions. I want to see 50, 75, 100 branches pass right to strike resolutions going into 2026. And I'd love to see CLC be a part of that process in some sort of way, advocating within the branches where you have support, where you have leadership that are involved with CLC to push this campaign forward. BFN can't do it alone. I can't do this
Yeah.
alone, And so I wonder what you think about that, Corey. I got a lot to say, but I'm
Here's the thing, Tyler, and this is what you'll catch most of is these people that do strike, UAW, Teamsters and stuff like that, do because they don't have collective bargaining. And they will always say, the NELC has collective bargaining, so we don't have a right to strike. I think you see what just happened to us. Do we have collective bargaining? Because our president circumvented that with his TA. We have collective bargaining, so we can take all of our issues, our ills, our grievances to a national arbitrator to talk about our contract. And you have a president willfully circumventing that process, taking that process away from us by stipulating a decision that got voted down, historically got voted down, this TA, stipulating the same language of the TA to this national arbitrator, and that's what we got. So he circumvented the will of the people. So where do we go then? What do we do then? When you have a president actively circumventing the will of the people, and they say you cannot strike because you have collective bargaining, do we? On the
yeah.
books, on the books we do. On the books we have collective bargaining. But I just had a president circumvent the will of the people and circumvented our collective bargaining by stipulating a decision through national arbitration. So we got the same thing basically that we shot down. So you have a stronger position now to say when those people say, well, y'all have collective bargaining. Teamsters, UAW, they don't. So the only avenue they have is to strike, to let the country know.
I believe they do have collective bargaining, which
Do
is
they?
part of the contract negotiation process is collective bargaining for them. But what they have instead of binding arbitration is the ability to strike. And so this is BFN, their coordinating committee.
You're right.
And yeah. And so the point you're getting to still stands that what good is collective bargaining if you get the outcome that we just got? That's precisely why BFN advocates for the right to strike. This arbitration award shows exactly why we need the right to strike. I think that in 1970, by taking strike action, letter carriers and postal workers won the right to they won collective bargaining for the first time. We've only had them since 1971, when the Postal Reorganization Act happened. What we got through strike action, we got collective bargaining, and they said, but we're not going to give you the right to strike going forward. We're going to give you binding arbitration. And this to me shows BFN is opposed to, our coordinating committee met on this and came out with a statement. We're opposed to any process where letter carriers do not get the final vote on our contract. And to me, binding arbitration was a concession given to management in the wake of the 1970 strike in order to say, well, you don't need the strike. We'll have put it through binding arbitration. But this award shows exactly the dangers in that position. And of course, having a stronger leadership would have made a different outcome. But that alone isn't enough. I think the members need the final say. Any other union would have voted down that sellout contract by a 2-1 margin like we did or more, and would have voted to take strike action. That is what we need the right. And that is, if you do not have the right to strike, if you do not have the ability to even threaten strike action, what leverage do we have outside of having a really good negotiator, which I hope we have the best negotiators possible. But that's precisely why BFN is opposed to binding arbitration when it comes to the contract and believes that instead we need the right to strike, just like we had in 1970.
Yeah, you're 100% right. It's binding arbitration. I kept saying collective bargaining, but binding arbitration.
Yeah.
And that's what they'll say. That we have binding arbitration. They do not have that, and so that's our avenue. I think Renfro's killed that position, for us because how he hijacked that. The only out we have, and you hijacked it. The only avenue we have, and you hijacked that. You sat down with management, and you willfully circumvented the will of the people, and that's what happened. And so I think you have a much stronger position to say, hey, we need the right to strike because unlike these other unions, we have binding arbitration, but you see what happens when you have a rogue president completely destroy that. So where do we go? What do we do now? We don't have the right to strike because we have binding arbitration, unlike these other places. And so what happens when you have a president like the one we have now say, I'm going to do what I want to do, not what my people want me to do. I'm
Yep.
going to take this into my hands. I'm not going to seek counsel from anybody. I know what's best for y'all. Y'all don't. And so we're just sitting here with our thumbs up our asses, like, what do we do? Oh, woe is me, you know?
Yep.
And so I think the BFN has a much stronger position now to say, here's why.
Yeah.
You just saw what happened to the will of the people.
That's
It
right.
got pissed on by a president that is in cahoots with management. That's how I feel. And passed through this TA that we historically voted down. And so here we are, sitting there
That's
looking
right.
at each other like, what do we do now? You know,
Exactly.
what do we do
Exactly.
now? I
Well,
said long ago, I had an episode on striking, and I said, who are we going to strike against? Ourselves? Hell, that might be a good idea. Ourselves, our president. When you say, well, who are we going to strike against? We're doing all this to ourselves. The
mm,
Postal Service is being the Postal Service. That's who they are. Just like this cat saying they got a good TA. Matter of fact, we should reduce it. That's what they do. That's who they are. We have got to understand who we are as a union. We are supposed to fight that, and we didn't. We gave that away. The only thing we've got, we gave it away
mhm.
after 700 days of that. So, uh,
You're exactly right, Corey. And I think what this campaign, I mean, that's what a wildcat strike is. That's what it was in 1970. It was not condoned. It was not sanctioned by the national leadership. They had to play catch up after New York went out and pulled in dozens of branches across the country to join them. And then that leadership that led that strike went on to take the leadership of the union and turn it into the union that we know it to, knew it to be and what we're fighting for to restore it to today. But this campaign for the right to strike, it would be both a fight to repeal the no strike clause. We got two ways. We got to fight this on multiple grounds. It would be a fight to repeal the no strike clause that's in our contract. Boom, get it out of there. And to build a movement with other postal unions, other federal workers unions to publicly fight for the right to strike using public demonstrations, protests, escalating actions, and as part of that process, lobby Congress at the same time through the letter carrier political fund. Can't just lobby Congress. It's got to be a movement in the streets. But that's what that campaign would look like, and that's what we're going to be using as the basis to craft the language for our resolution. And I also want to say to people, some people said, "Well, we didn't have the right in 1970." Yeah, you're right. Of course, it was illegal in 1970. But fighting for the right to strike today gives us the ability to publicly and openly campaign for it within our union, on the shop floor, in the branches, in discussions. It allows us to have the necessary discussions and debates with other NELC members in order to actually build the capacity of our union to be able to actually pull off strike action if it were to come to that. Just because it's legal for other unions does not mean they have the ability to actually pull off a successful strike. And I think the other part of it is people say, well, in 1970 we shut down the economy. There's parts of that is true, but USPS is still a crucial. Yes, of course, letters are not the main form of communication like they were in the 1800s, or even a main form of paying bills like they were in the 20th century. But USPS is still a crucial part of the delivery and logistics industry in this country. UPS and FedEx and Amazon have all relied on us to deliver huge parts of their network in the past and even today. And without us, Amazon would not be the enormously profitable mega corporation that they are today. That was built in large part off the backs of postal workers, getting Amazon, giving, basically corporate welfare to help them build out their network. And so I want people to think about that. USPS still plays a crucial role in a huge part of our economy.
yeah. Well, I'm very interested on where that will lead. To have that attacking the no strike clause.
Hmm.
I'll be very interested to see where that goes. To at least put that in our pocket. With strong leadership, Tyler, I doubt that will ever be needed. With strong leadership, the problem is we have the worst leadership we've ever had over this union right now, and the carriers are desperate and they have nowhere to go. We're going to get out in the street anytime you tell us we're going to get out in the street. We'll get out in the street. We've organized days of action to make phone calls, and our own president's
Hmm.
working against us behind the scenes with management on this TA and then this national arbitration. So, you're not saying we're going to strike. You're saying, hey, let's at least have that option on the table. We don't have it right now. And so let's at least talk about, let's start a discussion about having that option on the table because,
Mhm.
like I said, what good is binding arbitration if your president intentionally circumvented that process and took that away from the city letter carrier like he did this year? We were saying on day 200, what, tell us at least what's going on. We need open bargaining. Tell us what's happening. On day 300, y'all are saying, hey, we're still here. Want y'all to tell us what's going on about open bargaining. What is at least going on day 400 and 500 and 600? We're still saying, hey, the city letter carrier, at least tell us what's going on. No, we're not going to tell you what's going on. People are saying, hey, you can't tell them what's going on because it'll let the Postal Service know what we're asking for, which is the all-time dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. We can't tell you what's going on because Congress will get involved, even though we have binding arbitration, which is completely foolish. So many things coming out against us saying, tell us what's happening. And now you see what happened.
That's
He
right.
ran it into the ground. You have binding arbitration that was taken away from us, like I said. And so I'll be interested to see where that heads because when you have the ability to strike, you'll also need a strike fund for people that are out so they don't lose
Hmm.
everything that they've gotten. This is the reason a lot of people are saying, I can't do that because I can't afford, hell, we don't make any money now. Can't afford to be off without any bills. So those things will all be a part of that discussion
Of course.
when that comes up. But
And I think, Corey,
yeah,
just to say on that, I mean, that is another resolution that I would be very interested in exploring and bringing to the 2026 convention. The letter carrier political fund, before it was the letter carrier political fund, was a strike fund. I
mhm,
think, as part of a process of fighting for the right to strike, winning the right to strike, we should establish a strike fund that can be contributed to voluntarily. I would
yeah,
contribute $50 from every paycheck to a strike
yeah,
fund if we had one, auto
yeah,
pay, set it right up to my bank account. And I think we could easily build up a strike fund to address some of those issues. And because strike action is not something to be taken lightly, of course, I don't want people to get that impression that it's like some big party or something.
right,
Clearly, it's not. I work not because I just love my job, although I do love my
yeah,
job. I work because I need to work in order to live. And part of being in a union is fighting for better wages and better working conditions so that we can get as much life, we can live as much of our life as possible outside of
yeah,
work.
yeah. Right now you say that striking is not an option. Uh, you want the BFN is saying striking should be an option, the last option. That should be the last option we have if you have, say, a president come in and circumvent the will of the people. Right now, it's not an option. Let's at least put that on the table as an option. The last option. You talk about the fund. Uh, when I was a new shop steward, we had a manager. This management team. My station is very unionized. They're very militant. I mean, they scare me. They're so unionized. So they they have this team come in, manager and supervisors, that they're firing everybody, putting everybody off the clock. So we started a fund. A lady named Mary Psalms was a carrier there. Started a bank account. We started putting money into that to pay those carriers' bills that were being, there were so many being put off the clock. We were paying their bills out of that fund. That's
Wow.
exactly what you're talking about. That's
Exactly.
exactly what you're talking about. And so we set up our own fund because these clowns, they would fire you for anything, knowing we were going to get our job back, just like they're doing now with these emergency placements. We dealt with that before.
Mm.
These emergency placements where they're going nationwide, putting us off the clock for anything and everything. Well, they were doing that to us. And so we're like, we'll put up our own fund. We'll put in our own money to this bank account. We will help alleviate those costs of those people that are going to be out for extended periods of time because of these removals. And so that reminded me of what you're saying, have some kind of fun. But, those would be interesting talks to come up. I
Right.
know, like you said, the strike talk always scares the shit out of everybody. But I think you gained a lot of traction with what just happened to us
Mm.
with this president. I mean, he's fucked everything up, man. So
Yeah.
he's put y'all's case right there on the front burner, I think.
That's right. That's right. And just I want to talk about the CLC here before we finish up. But I love that example from your station. That I think shows me the potential that exists. And that sort of solidarity, that sort of union consciousness, that I'm sure that didn't come out of nowhere. I'm sure you had a
Yeah,
big role to play in that. The strength of your branch down there had a role to play in that. Other individuals through conversations, through actions, through winning grievances and having each other's back. That sort of solidarity is forged. It does not come out of nowhere. And so that
yeah,
to me shows, because I'm sure I talk to people that have this experience. I'm sure you get reached out to all the time of people saying that is not the case at my station. People are at each other's throats, and there's lots of division. The divide and conquer strategies of management over the last few decades has worked in many, many places, but that
yeah.
solidarity must be forged. It can be forged, and I think it's through all of these fights, from open bargaining to the No campaign to fighting in 2026 for new leadership, fighting for the right to strike. This is how we build up that sort of the new sort of solidarity that we'll need to really transform this union.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that that's growing. I think
Hmm.
that the movement right now, this kind of ground roots uprising, like I say, this grassroots movement of the city letter carrier, we've not seen this before. We've not seen it before where so many are getting involved. They're listening, they're paying attention, they're understanding that, hey, we're not going to be pissed on anymore. We're going to stand up. And I think that you see that now more than at any time, probably since 70. The city letter carrier awakening and this movement, you talking about y'all, talking about us, really we're all the same, but this anti-establishment movement saying we deserve better, we want better, and we're going to get better. We're going to take it upon ourselves, and so I think that you're seeing more and more of that. Um, when you talk about management's done a very good job of kind of divide and conquer, I think you're seeing us waking up, and
Hmm.
I love being a part of it. I love y'all being a part of it. Us talking all the time, you coming on here, and I think that it's both of those movements are growing. And at the end of the day, I think we're going to get what we want
I
when
think so.
2026 comes around. And I think that everybody will have a part in that, revolutionizing this union and turning it back to how it should be.
That's right. That's right. On that topic on 2026, I think I personally was happy to see. I think CLC made the right choice selecting you as the executive vice president for the slate in 2026 for that team. I think, Corey, I mean, you're obviously you've earned and you've won a lot of respect. You're easily the most well-known reformer, I think, within NELC. You in this podcast played, I think, a defining role in forming the reform movement that we have today. Without this podcast, the fight for open bargaining would not have been as successful as it was. Maybe we'd gotten it passed in Branch 9 and a few other places going into the convention, but it was through this platform that thousands of NELC members were already plugged in, looking to fight. The natural progression from education and just around grievance, teaching stewards and branch presidents and others to know how to do grievances and stuff, which is obviously important. But then seeing that there was a much deeper thing going on here. Without this, like I said, without this podcast and this platform and the movement that it helped spur, open bargaining would not have been as successful. BFN probably wouldn't exist in the way that it does, or look the way it does today. And so just for 2026, I know lots of people are asking, what's the difference? What's BFN? What's CLC? I have people asking me all the time, are you guys running in 2026? No, BFN's not running a slate. We'll have some sort of endorsement process for 2026. Like I said, we are consolidating on our gains of the last year. I'm really, I and the coordinating committee, the other people in the national leadership are really striving to create this as a caucus, as an organization that people feel ownership over. And so
Yeah,
while we need to lead from the front on many things, we also need to make sure there's democratic input and discussion. So like I said, there'll be some form of an endorsement process
yeah,
after a period of internal discussion and debate. And between BFN and CLC, we don't have to agree on absolutely everything, but key points of agreement are important and necessary. What can we work on together? For me personally, I'd like to see CLC take up support for the right to strike, actively campaign for it in the branches in the national convention. But there's a number of other issues. But I want people to be clear that both can exist, that CLC ultimately is. I think it would be great if CLC became a membership organization. I would honestly push for that, and that would create a whole nother discussion about what BFN would look like and what CLC looks like. But ultimately, CLC right now is a slate. It's a team of people running for leadership, and I think there is definitely room and an important space for BFN, which is ultimately a rank and file caucus, trying to get you know we need better leadership. We need to replace the leadership, but ultimately also need to get the rank and file active and involved around a set of ideas. And I think there's space for both. And I think I'm really looking forward to the future and the fights ahead and seeing what we can get out of them.
Yeah, you're 100% right, Tyler. Look, uh, we're on the same team. Whoever y'all endorse, man, that's y'all's business. I'm going to be a fan regardless. That's just how I am. And whoever, the BFN says, we're going to back this because of whatever, I'm going to be a fan. I'll always be a fan. I'll be a fan of yours, your movement, because, like you're saying, I started this thing, Tyler, to educate those smaller branches, and that's all this was. That is it. If bigger branches wanted to listen, and maybe some new ways to educate, some new things you haven't thought of before, because I have dealt with a lot. And then once you get into it and you start realizing our biggest problem is not management, it's our union's inability to fight or refusal to fight for us. It was completely foreign to me. And that was
Hmm.
the point I was trying to make earlier about when I always say that it's an embarrassment to have a movement called Build a Fighting NELC, because it's all I've ever known with my branch. It's been a
Mhm.
very strong branch. We've never had an issue of fighting. And to hear this movement called Build a Fighting NELC, you realize just how far our union has slipped,
Hmm.
to where there's these individuals saying we need to start a movement because our union is not doing what the union is supposed to do.
Mhm.
And so yeah, then your podcast kind of turns to education to, you know, this dude's angry. And so he's, he cusses a lot and he's very militant. And so
Mhm.
I hate I hate it where my union is at right now. I hate where it's at. And so, yeah, that just kind of born what I am now. This, you talk about the movement and whatever. I just think I
Mhm.
was able to give a voice to the voiceless, those carriers
Right.
that were feeling the same way, that wanted to yell out, to people to say, hey, listen to us. And that's what I said a long time ago. I'll be a voice to the voiceless, to those city letter carriers that saying, man, we're getting shit on by everybody. We're abandoned here. We're in the middle. We've got a union who's failing us, a postal service who's doing what they do, and so yeah, it kind of turned, Tyler, and so
Mhm.
here we are now. Would have never known each other, would have never
That's
met
right.
each other, and so I'll take that. I'll take that for what it is. I've lost a lot of friends because of it. I've lost a lot of support from union people who I thought were my friends,
Hmm.
and they can kiss my ass. I don't.
Sure.
I don't care, and that's what I'll tell anybody. I don't care, because the city letter care is the most important thing to me. If it wasn't the most important thing to you, Tyler, you wouldn't have that microphone in front of your face right now.
That's
You
right.
wouldn't be doing what you do. This is our family, and we're going to fight like hell, like Renfro says. We're
Hmm.
going to fight like hell. But we're going to fight for the right things. And so, yeah, I appreciate that, my man. I look forward to getting in there. To me, there's no doubt the CLC is going to win.
Hmm.
I believe that wholeheartedly. It is going to look kind of like the TA look. I think that's how it's going to be. And I can't wait to get in there and start. Like I said, we're going to work day one, and I look forward to it, my man. And we're gonna have a hell of a time of it. I definitely want to get you involved with things, man, because you are sharp as hell. I respect the shit out of you, and by then your movement will have quadrupled, and
That's
I'll look forward to seeing where you are at then in 2026 when you're going up to the mic raising hell about something else.
right. That's right. I
Mhm.
appreciate it, Corey. A little bit of rabble rousing is a good thing. Every
Nothing
once in a
wrong
while to
with
get
it.
yeah, to transform, for that regeneration. You gotta, you may have lost some friends, but you gained a whole hell of a lot more. That's for sure.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
for sure.
we've had fun with it, man. I'm not going to change, and even when we win, I'm still going to do this and
Yeah.
hold people accountable and get back to educating, hopefully, like I was. And so that's what I wanted to do. That's what I want to do. And that's my passion is educating. I don't come into it, like I said, with a list of how many fucks I'm going to say or some of bitches I'm going to say. They just, when I get passionate, man, it just kind of comes out. And so, yeah, brother, we're going to be all right, man. We're going to make it. But I love the shit out of you, man. I respect the hell out of you. I
Love you too.
appreciate your
Thank you.
I, I appreciate your movement. We need it now more than ever. You're challenging people to think about things they would have never thought about before. The need for things they would have never even thought about doing. You talking about the strike? At least having that as an option.
That's right.
Like I said, the uh, the goings ons of our president, what he did to us, I think has helped your plight there as far as that's concerned. I think that you can look back and say, well, what about that? What
Right.
what about what he just did? What's our option now? Just taking that, eating that shit sandwich, and
Hmm.
uh, and not having an out. And so I'd be interested to see what's going to happen with that.
I think we got a lot to look forward to, that's for sure. But I have
Yeah,
nothing but love for you, and I really appreciate everything that you've done to help push this along. And now I think now the goal is to get the hundreds and in reality thousands, hundreds of thousands even of
yeah,
NALC members to take up the fight because you and I can't do it alone.
yeah.
The
It's
leadership.
happening.
That's right. So I gotta get going here, but I do
All right, man.
appreciate you having me on. I just want to say one thing. If people are interested in getting involved with BFN and starting a chapter, I really encourage people. Some people that I don't even know where to start. Go to our website, fightingnalc.com. So fightingnalc.com, and check out our material on there. We have material on there about how to start a chapter. We have material on there from our statements that we made on the biggest of issues, and you can also sign up to join on there, either for our email list or sign up to join and that you want to build a chapter, and we can try to reach out to you and give you the resources that you need to get started. And even if you can find one other person that's interested in building with you, that's a good place to start. You just doubled your numbers. And so you really check out our website, fightingnalc.com, and let's take a little bit of a breather. We've been through a lot over the last year, but let's get ready for the fights that we got ahead of us in 2026 and beyond.
We got a bunch, man. Do you know if I have y'all's link up on from8arbitration.com? You know that? I'll have
That's
Mallory. I'll have Mallory put that up, that link, so that people
Thank
can
you.
go. Yeah. So when people
I
get on
appreciate
from
that.
8arbitration.com, I'll have your link up there so that way they can go on and do that.
Thank you, Corey.
Hook me
I'll
up
share
after.
that with you. I'll send that over
Yeah,
to you
yeah,
after this.
yeah. Hook me up with that one when we get off here. Okay.
All right. Appreciate it.
All right, my man. Tyler, as always, baby. Hey, has open invitation, my man.
I
Open
appreciate you. Thank you
invitation.
so much.
Whenever you want to come on, man. I love talking about y'all's ideas, my man. It's refreshing to see these groups getting together saying we expect and demand more. So anytime you want to come on, my man, you got it.
I appreciate you, Corey. Thanks for having me.
All right, Tyler. We'll see you, buddy.
See you later. Bye bye.
Bye.
All right, so that's Tyler Vasser, my man. Some very interesting conversation, right? He got some interesting points. And so I look forward to seeing with that movement how it grows, the things that he's putting on the table. Very interesting. And so I love that guy, his passion for the city letter carrier. And like I say, anytime he wants to come on, he can come on. I'm going to engage any kind of conversation. I'm going to engage it. If it helps us, let's talk about it, right? If not, then we'll disband it. But I love any kind of conversation my man has, and I think that they're a fantastic group. Build a fighting NLC because ours is not doing so. Ours is pathetic. And I'll talk a little bit about how pathetic it is right here. I may get carried away a little bit. Y'all know how I get when I get a little passion in me. I get upset and I say things, and some people like it, some people don't, but I imagine I will get a little passionate. And then I'm going to talk about my game plan as executive vice president, what we're going to do, the things that we're going to do as soon as I get in there, okay? But people are talking about the charge. I called for Brian's resignation. I think that he should do that immediately. He's not going to because he's narcissistic, and he has the backing of the committee, of the executive council, of the resident officers. He's got their backing, and so he's not going anywhere. We're going to have to vote that lazy son of a bitch out next year, which we will do. So when you talk about the charge, here's where we're at. Mike Cariff brought charges against Renfro, which I thought were basic, easy charges to uphold. Renfro needs to have nothing to do with the next collective bargaining agreement. He needs to be as far away from that process as possible because he failed miserably in that process. He is not a negotiator. He refers to himself as a skillful negotiator. He is not. He's the furthest thing from a skillful negotiator as we've ever had. And so he needs to be as far away from that process as possible. And so Mike Cariff brought up charges, and they were voted down. It's the easiest charge you could uphold is dereliction of his duty as far as the tentative agreement, how he handled that. Anybody who knows anything about anything knows that he failed that process. You cannot come out 700 days with that bullshit after you've lied to us so much. That's the thing. He lied during the entire process, and then to come out with that bullshit. And so to me, that was a very easy charge to uphold. He has the executive council and the resident officers in his pocket. I liken him. I love the movie Braveheart, like I've said a million times. He's Longshanks. He's Longshanks in Braveheart. Remember the bad guy? That's him. And you'd have the people where William Wallace was telling them to unite the clans, and Longshanks could always convince them, I'll give you titles and lands, and then they would sell their people out, right? Just for their own interest. They would sell their people out. And you had these people, man, just in poverty, and their leaders, the clan leaders, would just sell them out for their own benefit. That's our union right now. Renfro is Longshanks, and the clan leaders are our business agents. They're fucking sellouts, and they have sold us the fuck out to this sorry low-down line cheating son of a bitch. And so anytime I see him now, I think of Longshanks. Anytime I see the business agents and a lot of the resident officers, I think of those people that have sold us out, right? When William Wallace says, we got to unite the clans, and then they would go to Longshanks and he'd give them money, and then they would sell everybody out. So it's very difficult when you start talking about a charge because the executive council is not going to support anything. And then you're going to get into the position like you were last convention where he's going to be a martyr. He'll get up there and he'll say this bleeding heart story about what's wrong with him and this whatever bullshit he's going to come up with, and he's going to sell the members on that shit just like he did last time. Last time it was because he was a wino. And he used that to his benefit. He said that, him being a compulsive liar, a habitual liar, was because of his alcoholism. The problem is he's still a habitual liar. So alcoholism had nothing to do with it. He's just a liar by nature. So alcoholism probably enhanced his lying, but he's just a fucking liar. And he can't get away from that. In the convention, he lied to the people, and they still bought that shit, if you would have paid attention. And so what happened was, in the convention, I've talked about this before, is that he has the charges brought against him. They're being read out. And in the Weir report, he lied. Now, he was supposed to have been sober when he was being investigated by Weir, but he lied in that. If you remember, he said that when he had the DUI, he came back and he told Weir, I wasn't drunk. I wasn't drunk. And then at the convention, Chris Jackson gets him to lie in the convention. When Chris Jackson is questioning him, pleading his case, Renfro lies again to the members, and they don't care. They just overlook it. And so he lied when he was talking about James Henry, the zero tolerance policy that they have, when it says clearly what he's supposed to do. It says that you're supposed to take that to bleed to Ken Raker any issues of sexual harassment, you're supposed to take to him. And it's clear as day what you're supposed to do. And he said the reason he didn't is because he needed to seek counsel from 8 different people. And so he had to ask 8 different people what he's supposed to do. Wise counsel is what he said. I needed to get counsel from these 8 individuals. And so it was obvious that he was trying to spread these rumors that were unsubstantiated against James Henry. And so he gets up there, and when Chris Jackson talks about the policy, the zero tolerance policy, he comes back and tells the members it was not allowed in the hearing because, as anybody knows, and he kind of gives us some education on how arbitration works. He says, any new evidence will never be allowed, and that was new evidence, and so it was not allowed because it was not in the original file, this zero tolerance policy that we were referring to that he violated. And so he told the members that, everybody that. He said that was not in the original file. And so at this hearing that he had, this committee of 3, Chris Jackson and them tried to introduce this zero tolerance policy, and they objected to it because it was not in the original file. He told everybody that. The first thing Chris Jackson came back under rebuttal and said, it was on page such and such of the file. You were dishonest. It was in the file. It was page so-and-so. Renfro never came back to it. He never said, oh, you're right, I'm sorry. He never came back to it. So Chris Jackson impeached his testimony in front of the entire convention. He impeached his testimony right there on the spot. And the members didn't care. They didn't care. They just kept on voting for this motherfucker, right? He lied to the Weir report. He lied to Weir. He lied to the convention members. They didn't give a shit. And he said it was all because he was a wino. And so that's what you have to worry about when you file a charge, is because, first off, the executive council has shown they're going to protect this sorry motherfucker no matter what. And then you're going to have to go back in front of the convention again to appeal that decision. And you're going to risk making him a martyr. He'll come up with some kind of fucking excuse this time again. Last time it was that he was a drunkard, and so you risk the chance of making him a martyr. And so you have to be very careful with filing charges again. Once those charges that Cariff brought forward were shot down, you're kind of like, you got to sit back and think, really, what are you doing? You can file 100 charges, but this executive council, these dumb fucks, MBAs that ain't worth a fucking shit, are going to sit there and protect this dumb motherfucker. And so, it's the Longshanks, and it's those individuals that are protecting him, and they have shit on the city letter carrier. And I think it's funny. A friend of mine, we talk about the slate, running a slate. He don't believe you run a slate. You don't run people just to run against people. And my opinion is that you run people against sorry motherfuckers that have done nothing but piss on the letter carrier. And so he says that, how do you know who they are? It's very obvious who it is that has sided with Renfro. Anybody that, to me, if I'm putting a slate together, anybody when the shit hits the fan, and you have an option, you can side with the city letter carrier or you can side with Renfro. And your choice was to side with Renfro, your ass needs to be gone. We will run people against you in this next election. Those that have done that on a consistent basis. Those have said, piss on the city letter carrier, we're going with Renfro. Anybody that's done that, we're going to run somebody against them, okay? And so I don't want to work with anybody like that. I don't want to work with anybody that has sided with Renfro when I'm EVP. If I've known that you have worked with Renfro, not the city letter carrier, I want nothing to do with you. I think you're a worthless piece of shit, and that's just my opinion. So you have Renfro, he's lying before, he's blaming it on him being a wino, and then you have him lie to Weir, and then you have him lie to the congregation, and then you still have him lying today when he's lying about this tentative agreement, the things that he's going to produce to us as far as 9%. Anything less than that will not be accepted, and he did. He lied about the all-career workforce as a non-starter. He lied about that. He lied about the CCAs, if kept, will have a substantial raise. He lied about that. So there's a history, a pattern of this motherfucker just being a fucking liar. And so that's the reason you have to think about what you're going to do. So I'll call for his resignation. At the end of those days, a lot of branches are already putting in making motions to write a letter asking for his resignation. We'll have a full-on movement at the end of the time I've given him to resign. Mallory's going to get that together for me on from8arbitration.com. We can get on there, download a letter, and sign it and mail it to him, okay, asking for his resignation. That's what we'll do. He's not going to do it because he knows he has the side of the council and the resident officers, so he's not going to do that. But a couple of things I want to talk about, and the things that happened at the COP, kind of where we're at with this dumb fuck. You have this TA, and that has done him in. I mean, he will lose based off of the TA alone because of his dishonesty, how he handled that. There's outrage about that will not be diminished. That's going to carry on through this next election. And he lied to us during the entire process. He strung the process out, knowing that they were going to shit on us and try to starve us out. And the city letter carrier stood up and said, we're not going to take it. And then he goes and he stipulates an award with the arbitrator and basically, turns his back on the city letter carrier. There's a couple of things I want to read to you that happened at the COP. For those that aren't on social media. One is by Paul Boulanger, and he might be on. I might get him to come on. He's got some resolutions that I'm going to put those up on from8arbitration.com. But Paul is very outspoken. If you know who he is, any kind of COP, he's going to challenge the president. And so he came up there, and I want y'all to listen to this, and I'm going to read this twice because you won't believe it the first time I read it. Says, I want every NALC member to be aware of this and to remember it. Yesterday at the Committee of Presidents meeting in Pasadena and in front of 200 branch presidents from around the country, I asked President Renfro if he agreed in the mediation process with the arbitrator prior to actual deliberations to accept the work rules that we voted down in the failed tentative agreement. The exact words he spoke were, I sure did. Our no votes meant nothing. Remember this day, brothers and sisters. I'm going to read that again because here you have a tentative agreement that was voted down historically. It was pummeled. And it, like I said, it bent this motherfucker. It bent his ass when we did that because we are paupers to him and to the executive council and to the resident officers. We are paupers when you talk about Longshanks and you talk about these motherfuckers that have sold us the fuck out. What they're doing is you've got these funky ass business agents toting this motherfucker through town, through the paupers that are sitting here living in squander, and they're living in poverty, and they're carrying this motherfucker around. He's got his hand out wanting us to come up and kiss the fucking ring. And that's what these motherfuckers have done to us. This bitch-ass president we have, Renfro, Longshanks, these sorry-ass motherfucking business agents carrying this motherfucker around. A lot of these resident officers are doing the same fucking thing. Carrying this motherfucker through town. He's got his hand out the fucking thing and wanting us to kiss this motherfucker's ring. When we didn't, when we stood the fuck up and told this motherfucker to take that ring and shove it up his fucking ass, what did he do? He circumvented the will of the people by going forward and stipulating an award with this arbitrator. He circumvented the will of the people. Remember that in 2026. They think this motherfucker got voted down this year, this TA. Wait till this election comes up next year. Wait and see how that motherfucker gets beat down in that election. They have seen nothing yet. This executive council has seen nothing yet. These resident officers have seen nothing yet as far as what's coming to these motherfuckers, right? So I want y'all to remember that shit, okay? I want y'all to remember how they have treated us during this process like we are peasants, like we are paupers. We voted on a tentative agreement that was not good enough for us. We want you to fight for us. We had to pick this motherfucker up, throw him into the ring to fight for us, right? Because why? Because he's a sorry, low-down piece of shit who has no idea how to fight. So they're dragging this motherfucker through town, carrying him on their fucking shoulders. He's got his fucking arm out of the carriage, wanting us to kiss this motherfucker's ring, and we told them all to fuck off. All of them were trying to tell us to accept this TA, right? Every single one was trying to tell us to accept this TA. And we told every single one of them to go fuck off. And what did he do? He stipulated an award with the arbitrator circumventing the will of the people. I'm going to read this again, what Paul said. Now remember, the arbitrator, he didn't mention anything about the work rules. When he said the parties gave them their positions. Labor gave them their position. Tolino, Renfro gave their position. Nobody said anything about work rules, but yet the first sentence in his award said what? He said, except as otherwise indicated herein, all contractual modifications in the TA shall be included in the new contract. And we said what? How did he know what they were? How did he know what the contractual modifications were? He didn't say that either party brought that up. So Paul Bolanger, he asked him about it. And here's, again, I'm going to read it again, what he said. I want every NALC member to be aware of this and to remember it. Yesterday at the Committee of Presidents meeting in Pasadena, and in front of 200 branch presidents from around the country, I asked President Renfro if he agreed in the mediation process with the arbitrator prior to actual deliberations now, not while they were in that mediation for the 2 days, prior to actual deliberations, to accept the work rules that we voted down in the failed tentative agreement. The exact words he spoke were, I sure did. What do y'all think about that? You voted down historically this TA. The work rules were part of that, right? Not just the monies, the work rules, because we didn't agree with the shit. It's unsafe, first off. Manny Peralta should be raising hell. Where's he at? And I love that guy, but fuck, where's he at? This man has endangered your carriers by lifting the caps on the 12 and 60. Where is Manny Peralta raising fucking hell? Because if I'm the director of safety and health, I've got both my feet in that motherfucker's ass for doing that. You have endangered the city letter carrier craft when you did that. And so we voted down, right? We don't like any of the work rules that you've tried to done with this reduction in office time, this removing the caps on the 12 and 60. We voted down. And I'm going to get into that in just a second too. And so what does Paul say? I asked Renfro if he agreed in the mediation process with the arbitrator prior to actual deliberations to accept the work rules that we voted down in the failed tentative agreement. The exact words he spoke were, I sure did. That motherfucker, let me tell you, the will of the people was heard as resounding as it could ever been heard. 70% shot that shit down. And he said, I sure did, when asked if he brought those work rules up and told the arbitrator to stipulate to that. I sure did. What is he saying? Fuck y'all. Fuck the city letter carrier. He might as well just said that. Fuck the city letter carrier. That's your president. That's your president. People are still defending this motherfucker today. That's your president. I sure did. Did you circumvent the will of the people by going in there and telling the arbitrator to accept these work rules that we voted down? I sure did. You know why? Because this executive council, they kiss my ass. Because these resident officers, they kiss my ass. That's why. Fuck y'all out there, peasants. Fuck y'all. I got these motherfuckers just crawling over themselves, waiting for an inch of ass to be shown so they can kiss that motherfucker. That's how they are. Sorriest motherfuckers I've ever seen are the MBAs and the resident officers who continue to protect this lying, sorry son of a bitch. And y'all will be voted out. Now they're scrambling from this motherfucker now. You got MBAs talking about running independent. That have protected this motherfucker. Y'all can't run from him now. It's too fucking late. Y'all cannot run from this motherfucker. You got people, his right-hand man, talking about getting a ticket together because they know he's going to lose. You will not win either. You're wasting your fucking time. Y'all cannot run from what y'all have done. You cannot run from this motherfucker. He's tainted y'all. Y'all smell like him now. Y'all been kissing that motherfucker's ass so long, now y'all smell like him. Y'all will not win either. You're wasting your fucking time. But that's where we're at. I'm going to read something else to you. This will piss you off too. Now this is Melissa Rakestraw. She put this up. Yesterday at the Committee of Presidents meeting, the national president claimed the arbitration process wasn't a mediation And there was no stipulated award. Now I'm going to read the arbitrator's decision to you, okay? Let me read this to you, what the arbitrator said. So let's see who's lying. Let's see who's lying. Either Renfro's lying or the national arbitrator's lying. Nolan, let's see who's lying. Now she says, this is what she says. Yesterday at the Committee of Presidents meeting, the national president claimed the arbitration process wasn't a mediation and there was no stipulated award. Page 3. The mediation sessions took place in Washington, D.C. on March 17th and 18th. Somebody's lying to us. Somebody's lying. Either Renfro's lying, who has a history of lying, or Nolan's lying, who, why would he lie about anything? You've got a motherfucker who has a history of lying. I could put that in front of any arbitrator and they would see that he is dishonest. He has a history of it. I can show you. I've shown it to you earlier. He's got a history of fucking lying. He says that it wasn't a mediation and there was no stipulated award. But yet when Paul Bollinger asked him, I asked President Renfro if he agreed in the mediation process with the arbitrator prior to actual deliberations to accept the work rules that we voted down in the failed tentative agreement. The exact words he spoke were, I sure did. Do you know what that is? That's a stipulation. You stipulated that in the award. When you said, I sure did. That's a stipulation. So when we say that's a stipulated award, that's what we're talking about. You go and you tell the arbitrator, look, these are things that we want you to accept. That's a stipulated award. The arbitrator says the mediation sessions took place in Washington, D.C. on March 17th and 18th. That's what the arbitrator said. Melissa Rakestraw, yesterday at the Committee of Presidents meeting, the national president claimed the arbitration process wasn't a mediation. This motherfucker, man, he's dangerous to the city letter carrier. This motherfucker is dangerous to us. She goes on. I went to the mic and read the excerpts from the arbitrator's award when he called it a mediation. That's what I just read to you. And said both parties worked cooperatively to reach a fair outcome. I pointed out that even the arbitrator thought it was a mediation that resulted in what the parties thought was a fair outcome. At this point, Renfro interrupted me and shouted, "That's a lie." I'm not sure if he was calling me a liar or the arbitrator. Either way, it was disrespectful. We were lectured by the chair and others to disagree respectfully, but Renfro himself is incapable of such. So why does this matter? Because a mediated agreement should have went back before the members to a vote. And that's what we said on that episode. The Constitution says if you both parties come up with a mediated award, it needs to be ratified. That's what we were saying. I asked him what he learned from this process, and he gave no specifics. He said, this was the best agreement we could get at this time. I suggested perhaps he shouldn't have waited for over 600 days to get an agreement. It's all on him because he doesn't take input from others, but he won't own it when people are unhappy. I'm sharing a picture posted on social media by NELC National because us lowly attendees were told we couldn't post pics to social media, even though Branch 36 posted a bunch of pictures of him on their social media site. So here you have a president being called out, shown that he's a liar. And what does he say? He screams out at a female, "That's a lie." At a female. Now, screams out at a female, "That's a lie." He has a problem with females, doesn't he? Does he? Because I remember him calling one a bitch. And they want us to be respectful of him? They want us to be respectful of that son of a bitch? He calls a female a bitch, another one's talking, interrupts her and says that's a lie, even though she read him the excerpt from the arbitration's decision. This man's got a problem. This man's got a problem. You got a lot of people saying that we need to respect him. A lot of that's going on. We're being divisive and shit. We need to respect him. We don't need to call him out of his name. We need to be respectful of that position. Let me ask you something. Men and women. If you're going, say, in a mall, in a store, and men, your wives with you, your daughter's with you, your mother's with you, and you're talking to somebody, or your mom's over talking with somebody, and that dude calls your mother a bitch, what would you do? If you're somewhere and your wife is somewhere walking around and she's talking with another man about something, and he calls her a bitch, what would you do? If your daughter's playing softball or some kind of sport, and the coach from another team comes over there and calls her a bitch, what would you do? Would you say, hey, remain respectful to that guy? Or would you whip that motherfucker's ass? But they want us to be respectful of that clown who has shown nothing but disrespect, interrupting a female saying that's a lie, even though she read him straight from the fucking decision. This motherfucker's had it coming a long time, speaking to women out of their names, calling them female dogs. And people get upset with me calling him out of his name. I've told you, I'm not going to call this motherfucker nothing but bitch and piece of shit until he's done. Because you do not speak to a woman like that. You do not interrupt a female and say that's a lie. You let them continue to speak. And then you address it afterwards. But he can't do that. He cannot be challenged. I know that Mr. Perry, the Branch 1100 president, he addressed him as well. And I think maybe he was gone at this time and nobody had the answer for it. And this is a very good question. He said, regarding the no votes, he said Renfro stated that he had a sampling of votes. And matter of fact, it's in this decision, and I'll read it for you. But it says the NELC's active membership overwhelmingly rejected the tentative agreement TA reached in late 2024, 71% to 29%. In a post-vote poll of active members by Hart Research, 85% of no voters indicated that higher general wage increases than the 1.3 annual increases in the TA were needed. Improved uniform allowances were also supported by a supermajority of such voters. The members' concerns must be addressed in the arbitrator's award. Now, he's talking about the members' concerns, those that had this small sampling, because at my Region 8 rap session, he said it was a small sampling that they sent out to no voters. And so Perry goes up there and he says, talking about the no voters, he says, how do you know who the no voters were? This was supposed to be a secret ballot. So how would you know who the no voters were? Unless you've been lying to us about who voted and who you can see voted. And because if it's supposed to be a secret ballot, how do you know who to mail a survey to? How would Hart Research know who to contact? Who voted no? How would you know who voted no? It's a secret ballot. This motherfucker can't get out of his own way. He does nothing but lie. So here you have a post-vote poll by Hart Research, and the majority of no voters on a secret ballot were contacted. How? And that's what Perry asked. Branch 1100 president. He said, how do you know who they were? And everybody up there looking at each other like, oh, fuck. Nobody had an answer. This motherfucker we have as president is the most dangerous individual in any labor movement ever. He will not stop lying to his members. He will not stop lying. He's got an executive council that carries him through town in a little buggy while he throws out scraps to us. They support him during that. You've got executive council members, resident officers that support him while he's walking around, while they're carrying his ass around, while he's throwing out scraps, holding his ring out for us to kiss. And they did not see us coming. I've said it over and over again. They did not see us coming. And this motherfucker will lose historically next year. Those that participated in that will lose historically next year. I will make sure of it. You got the lyingest motherfucker ever in this president. He can't say the truth to save his fucking life. Tells Paul Bollinger when he said, did you stipulate these the contractual issues? Yes, I did. Spiteful. Yes, I did. Because you're not going to challenge him. Who are you to challenge him, Paul? Who are you to challenge the mighty Renfro, the king, the dictator? Who are you, the pauper, the peasant, to question the authority of this president who's got full reign? Somebody messaged me the other day about it, and they said, I found this interesting, Corey, when you were talking about it, that this motherfucker, when in the Weir report, when they're talking about the charges levied against him dealing with Brother Henry, when he was spreading those false rumors, and he said, I sought counsel from 8 different people. Even though the zero tolerance policy told me to go exactly the steps to go through. I sought counsel from 8 different people to do that. But yet in this tentative agreement, that motherfucker didn't seek the counsel of one individual. Not one person on the executive council, resident officers, MBAs, knew one thing that was going on. Not one. But when you're dealing with Brother Henry spreading these rumors, he went to 8 people seeking counsel. When you're dealing with the biggest thing you're going to do as the president, the contract, when you're dealing with that, you don't seek the counsel of one motherfucker. Y'all find that odd? I don't. The first one, he was trying to spread rumors about Brother Henry and got his ass busted. And the convention, the members said they don't care. And he lied about it to the members, and they said they don't care. We want to keep him. Because the MBAs are going around spreading all this bullshit about voting. And now look where you're at. Those that voted to keep this lying sorry motherfucker in office. Look at where you're at now. The lyingest son of a bitch I've ever seen in my life. Fucking us over, circumventing the will of the people. It's on y'all. It's on y'all. He is who he is. He's the rattlesnake. He is who he is. He's a piece of shit. He's a lying son of a bitch. These MBAs, they're going to be held accountable for what they've done. These resident officers that back this motherfucker, they're going to be held accountable for what they've done. So we're talking about a charge. We're not going to bring a charge forward. We're not going to do it. When Mike Cariff lost that charge, is the easiest charge to uphold ever. The neglect of his duties as far as the tentative agreement, what he did. Now you see that he circumvented the will of the people and still lost that charge. He tells you he circumvented the will of the people and stipulated that award. And then when Melissa asked him a question, I didn't stipulate the award. Which one is it, motherfucker? You either stipulated it or you didn't. It's either mediation or it wasn't. The arbitrator says it was. And he says, no, it wasn't. That's a lie. Well, somebody's lying. Then he tells Melissa it wasn't a stipulated award. Paul asked him, was it a stipulated award? Yes. Yeah, I stipulated the contractual issues, told him that's what he's going to accept. These people are talking about division. You're being divisive. There doesn't need to be anything but NELC. These groups within the NELC, we just can't agree with that. CLC and BFN, that's division. Anybody who rises up against the establishment is division to them. You know why? Because they're losing their fucking position. They're going to say it's division. They want y'all to feel it's division. Look at these people, the CLC, those union thugs, ruffians. Look at them with their black shirts on, the lions on their backs. They're divisive. That's all they are, is divisive. That's what I was called when I went to Utah. I was divisive. Why are you bringing this divisive figure up here in front of us? That's what we are, because we're against the status quo. We're against the establishment. Anybody who rises up against the establishment is divisive. You're going to go up against the king? You're going to go up against the dictator? You're divisive. Y'all need the status quo. Trust us. We know what's best for you. Keep the status quo in there. A lot of good that's fucking done us. Divisive. You can kiss my divisive ass is what you can do. I will be divisive. That's exactly what I'm going to be. I'm going to be that. I'm going to be divisive to a president who calls a female a bitch. I'm going to be divisive against that motherfucker and rise up against him. You better believe it. I'm going to be divisive to one who circumvented the will of the people and stipulated an award on us. I will be divisive against that motherfucker, and anybody who sided with him. Corey Walton will be divisive against those motherfuckers. You better believe it. I'm the most divisive motherfucker when it comes to the city letter carrier. You fuck us over, you better believe I'm going to be divisive. Divisive. That's all they were talking about at that COP, this rhetoric. The rhetoric? Rhetoric? Really? Are y'all saying rhetoric? Are you talking about the motherfucker who called a female a bitch? You talking about rhetoric? You talking about the one who spreaded rumors against one of the most decorated union people you've ever had, James Henry? You talking about rhetoric? Really? Y'all accepted that at the convention. Now we're the ones who's divisive. We're the ones who's spreading rhetoric. You got a motherfucker who ain't told the truth yet, and we're being divisive? That's rhetoric? He's a fucking wino that was laying in bushes. That's rhetoric. That's fact. That's fact. He's the biggest piece of shit we've ever had. That's not rhetoric. That's fact. Divisive. Who in the fuck are y'all? What in the fuck have y'all been looking at? Holy fuck balls. We will be divisive. We will be divisive as city letter carriers. We will be divisive. We stood up against this TA, and he circumvented our will there. He will not circumvent our will in 26. He has not seen nothing yet when we're talking about this vote. He's not seen nothing. You think that TA was an ass whipping? Wait until this vote in 26. He can't circumvent that. He can't circumvent that ass whipping that's coming in 26. The city letter carrier has stood the fuck up. They have stood the fuck up, man. They have stood the fuck up. You got this motherfucker going through town telling us to kiss this motherfucker's ring, take these fucking scraps, siding with management, siding with Tolino. You know it just bent that motherfucker when we voted that TA down. He had to go to Tolino with his damn tail tucked between his legs. I'm sorry. They voted it down. They voted it down. Don't worry. Don't worry, sir. Don't worry. You're going to get what you want. Don't worry. We'll get it through arbitration. Well, how are we going to do that? We'll do an expedited arbitration. That way we don't have to turn in briefs, and we'll have a couple of days mediation and stipulate the award. You think the carriers are going to go for that? Fuck the carriers. Fuck it. That's what he told Paul when he said, I sure did. That's spiteful. I sure did. In other words, what the fuck you going to do about it? I'm the king here, motherfucker. What are you going to do about it? I sure did. Question me. I got you, Tolino. Don't you worry. I got you. These motherfuckers ain't gonna tell us what we're gonna do. Carriers. Look at them over there delivering mail. Who are they to tell us what we're gonna do? Carriers. I'll be damned. You know, Tolino's like, really? Look at them over there in their blue uniform. Shit, light blue. Shit. Yeah, I got you covered, man. We'll tell Nolan. I'll take care of it. Matter of fact, Tolino, you don't even have to come. Just take this picture, and you can go on back over there across the street. I'll handle Nolan. You know that's what this motherfucker was doing? God bless America. Every one of y'all that voted to keep this motherfucker in office, this is on y'all. This is on y'all. All of this. MBAs, you're losing your job. Anybody who supported this motherfucker, if we can find a breathing body, we'll run it up against a motherfucker who supported this son of a bitch, and you'll lose. Resident officers who have supported this son of a bitch, you will lose. All right? The city letter carriers had enough, and we stood the fuck up. You circumvented us once, and that'll be it. That's it. That's all of that, right? So, as far as the charge, a lot of that to talk about the charge. When Mike Cariff lost the charge, what's the point? I get the frustration and the anger, but you can see what's coming. You're just going to give him momentum at the next election when he comes up and he gives some kind of bleeding heart story about why in the fuck he fucked everything up and lied to us and circumvented the will of the people. And they'll buy it just like they bought the shit last time with his fucking lies. And he lied straight to the members' faces. Chris Jackson caught his ass, and they still voted to keep this motherfucker in. So Chris Jackson impeached his testimony in front of 10,000 people, and they didn't give a fuck. And so, yeah, we'll call for this motherfucker's resignation. I'll call for it Sunday, and then the next Sunday, and then the next. And then at the end of those days, we'll just have a little movement of our own city letter carriers, and we'll put in letters to tell this sorry motherfucker to resign. I know branches are already doing that, telling this sorry fuck to resign. And so we'll do that. And that way it'll carry us on into next year when we can vote this sorry motherfucker and his ilk out. Those that have been carrying him through town laughing at us peasants, laughing at us paupers, telling us to stand up and come kiss this motherfucker's ring. And so we'll vote all those motherfuckers out too. And that will not be an issue. That's a foregone conclusion. And we will take over. Now, speaking about taking over, Executive Vice President, what's that going to look like? What's it going to look like with me as Executive Vice President? And that's a good question. I will be over everything. The grievance procedure, I'll be over that. Ultimately, everything comes to me, and that's the way I wanted it. James Henry had asked. We talk all the time. Like I said on that episode with Next Generation Carriers, I told y'all that I was going to be the NBA. Now, that was before the CLC was even formed. I said I'm going to be the NBA because my region has fallen drastically. It is pathetic right now what my region is doing as far as the things I think that our business agent, to me, has given up. He is supposed to have retired already, and then when I kind of said that I was going to get involved, it forced him to stay in. And so it wouldn't have mattered. He was going to lose. And but I said I was going to be the NBA because I cannot stand to see the region that I love, Region 8, that's my people, that's my home, doing like it's doing. And it's terrible. We once led the country in arbitration decisions, winning percentage, and now we're probably, I don't even know where we're at. But anyway, I said I was going to run for NBA, and then the CLC, Charlie Miller, contacted me and said, hey, we're kind of on the same page here. We're starting a grassroots movement, and it's for the city letter carriers, by the city letter carriers. And so I was attracted to that, obviously, and said we're going to meet down in Jacksonville, Florida. So we went down there, and through that, James Henry was selected to be the candidate, and we talked. And I talked with everybody, and we talked all the time. And so James was like, hey, you could probably do a lot more damage as director of city delivery. Business agent, you're kind of tied to your region. Why don't you think about being director of city delivery? And I agreed. So certain things happened. Pieces were being moved around. We continued to talk. The dogs of war came up. The grievance procedure came up. And so, he sits me down. He says, I want you to think about running for executive vice president. That's a lot of responsibility. This covers a lot of things. I know that we think it's a clown show right now because the one we have right now is worthless as shit, Paul Barner. He ain't done a fucking thing but fuck us over since he's been in there. But there is a lot of responsibility that comes with that. You're over the grievance procedure. And so, you're going to work hand in hand with the business agents and the director of safety and health and all these, the vice president. And so there is a lot of responsibility. And I told him, I said, hey, brother, look, whatever you need me to do, if it's going to help the city letter carrier, I'm going to do it. If you think I'm best suited to go back down to NBA, that's what I'll do. I just want to be here for the city letter carrier, whatever that entails. And he said, I want you to be the executive vice president. We talked a long time about that before I accepted. We talked a long time about what he expects of me. I said on that podcast, y'all see this cuddly little bear. He is not. James Henry is extremely aggressive and extremely brutal when it comes to what he wants to do to management and this process. And so he said, I think you'll be the perfect candidate for that, for what we want to do. And so after thinking about it, talking with him, talking to my wife, we agreed that that's what I would do. One of those things, obviously, is the dogs of war that we talked about. We're going to change the culture on the workroom floor. That's already done. We're just waiting to get in. And so I've already got the person, like I said, that's going to do that. We've got enough signed up. Now, if you still want to sign up, you can. Just go to from8arbitration.com, contact us. The email will be there for you to sign up, and just do that. But we've got plenty signed up. A lot have signed up already. And so that will be something that has never been done before. And I know a lot of regions say, we already do that. We are losing our ass in arbitration, both contractually and discipline-wise, as far as the joint statement. We're doing terrible. And so the dogs of war will be a thing that it's a final resolution to an ongoing issue, the toxic work environment on the floor. We've been dealing with it for far too long. The dogs of war will be that final resolution to an ongoing issue, and they will be highly trained individuals that are going to go into stations. I've had more people contact me about wishing we could come into this station because of these things that are happening, and I agree. I wish more than anything I was in there so that we could already start dispersing these teams with some of the stories that y'all are telling me. And so this individual I have going to take over that. He will work hand in hand with the Director of Safety and Health. He will work with the business agents, with the branch presidents. He will also be in contact with the district managers, telling them that we're coming in, and that way they can be included in case files and they can come and testify, because you inconvenience people. When you talk about inconvenience, I had an episode on inconveniencing them. They don't want to be inconvenienced, so we will make sure we do that. And so we will be the consequence of their actions. We will be those rock men, right? They're going to be the consequence. And like I said, when they show up in your back door, it's too late. It's past the point of no return. And that's how they're going to be. They're going to be some brutal individuals that go into these stations. You're going to train them that what management will do, and they'll be taught this, is that they will move people and say, hey, we moved them. We don't care. Well, we fired them. We don't care. We're going to take you to arbitration, because they lie. And they will circumvent the MSPB process by bringing them back right before you go. They'll say we removed them, and you'll say, okay, we'll drop the grievance, and then they'll bring them back through the mediation point of the MSPB process. Or they'll say we moved them. Okay, well, we'll drop the grievance, and then they'll bring them back. So those things, like I said, when they show up, it's too fucking late. And so that'll just be one of the things, the toxic working environment. That will be something that we address, and that will be day one. We will have already known that we won the election. The individual that I have chosen will be ready to send out the first group that's going to come up there and be trained. That training will already be implemented, and so when they come up, they're going to be good to go. That training will be a week-long, a very extensive training on every aspect of everything dealing with getting managers moved from supervising city letter carriers. And so he'll be able to send those teams out within a month of us taking over. Within a year, I believe that we'll have the toxic working environment on the workroom floor corrected. That's what I think. And it's going to take 5 or 6 months to start seeing good results, because that's how long it's going to take to get it through the process and get grievances heard in arbitration and get those decisions back. We're winning about 45-50% of our cases. Within a year, I want us to be up to around 70%, and then I want us to hover around 80% after that, because we're going to take good cases forward, and that's something I look forward to. That's the passion of James Henry, is the toxic working environment, correcting that, and so that's what we're going to do. You're talking about the workroom floor, the grievance procedure. I'm over that. The grievance procedure works if you don't fuck it up like Barner has. Okay, so the grievance procedure works. When you say that grievances are untimely or they're being held in abeyance or something, there doesn't need to be a change to the grievance procedure. The grievance procedure, as outlined in the contract, is designed to work. What you can't have is your own people, i.e. Barner, fucking it up, and that's what he's done. Now, I'm going to read to you in the contract the time limits. And these are things that obviously our stewards at the most basic level. I'll talk about education here in just a second. And when you talk about education, you talk about time limits and stuff. And I'll get into education, like I said, but here's the time limits, and it's expressed in the contract. In the Joint Contract Administration Manual, it spells it out clearly for you. If you look on page 15.2, time limits. That's what it says, time limits. The 14 days for filing a grievance at informal step A begins the day after the occurrence or the day after the grievant or the union may reasonably have been expected to have learned of the occurrence. For example, if a grievance receives a letter of warning, day 1 of the 14 days is the day after the letter of warning is received. So that's telling our shop stewards, you got 14 days. And when that 14 days starts. So we're already starting off, very good explanation as to the time limits. Then you talk about the informal A meeting. It's a discussion, right? You don't have to have contentions. I do. A lot of people don't. But it's a discussion. It tells that to you. In any such discussion, 15.2 informal step A-B. In any such discussion. So that tells you what? It's a discussion there. It goes down below that block. During the informal step A discussion. Says it again. So the informal A meeting is a discussion. That's the reason it's called informal. Then when you get to the formal, obviously, it becomes formal. So informal is discussion. 15.2 informal step AC. If no resolution is reached as a result of such discussion, the union shall be entitled to file a written appeal to formal step A of the grievance procedure within 7 days of the date of the discussion. So it's telling you there that the informal step A meeting is nothing more than a discussion. You're going to go over things that you're obviously any provisions you're using or anything like that. And it's a discussion. It tells you it over and over again that it's a discussion, but there's your time limits. Shall be entitled to file a written appeal to a formal step A of the grievance procedure within 7 days of the date of the discussion. Down below that, if the parties are unable to resolve the grievance during the informal step A meeting, the union may file a written appeal to formal step A within 7 calendar days after the meeting. Then it goes on page 15.4. When appealing a grievance to formal step A, day 1 is the day following the receipt of the supervisor's oral decision. So again, it's telling you when to send it. When appealing a grievance to formal step A, day 1 is the day following the receipt of the supervisor's oral decision. So it's spelling out clearly for us our time limits. You go to the next page. Page 15.5, 15.2, formal step A-D. At the meeting, the union representative shall make a full and detailed statement of facts relied upon, contractual provisions involved, and the remedy sought. The union representative may also furnish written statements from witnesses and or other individuals. So the first one is a discussion. Now we're at the formal A meeting. That's where everything's going to be done. That's the reason I say it's the most important step, right? And so it goes to 15.2, formal step A-F. The formal step A decision is to be made and joint step A grievance form completed the day of the meeting, unless the time frame is mutually extended. The union may appeal an impasse to step B within 7 days of the date of the decision. So again, it's telling you exactly when you're going to appeal it. So we have the informal, right? The meeting, how long it's going to take, when you're going to meet, after the meeting, how long it's going to take to appeal. And then it has this 15.2 formal step A-F. The formal step A decision is to be made and the joint step A grievance form completed the day of the meeting, unless the time frame is mutually extended. The union may appeal an impasse to step B within 7 days of the date of the decision. So again, it's telling us time frames, okay? Page 15.7. Appeal to step B. If the grievance is not resolved at formal step A, the union may appeal it to step B within 7 calendar days of the formal step A decision. So it's telling us clearly when we're supposed to appeal, right? 15.2 step B. B. The step B team will review the appeal and issue a joint report of the decision and any supporting findings within 14 days of receipt of the appeal at step B, unless the parties mutually agree to extend the 14-day time period. Now that's the problem. We have things sitting at DRT for months. Why? I'll get into that in just a second. So everything's made to be streamlined. The grievance procedure as written is very good. It's very good if it works properly. The problem is you have two dumb fucks. You have Lloyd who's bitched Barner out. And so the grievance procedure is broken. The DRT is broken. And you've got to fix those things. So this here again, it tells you 15.2 step B, B. The step B team will review the appeal and issue a joint report of the decision and any supporting findings within 14 days of receipt of the appeal at step B, unless the parties mutually agree to extend the 14-day period. Next page, 15.8. Step B decision. The dispute resolution team must make a decision within 14 calendar days after receipt of the appeal from formal step A, unless this time limit is mutually extended. Let's go to the next page. Page 15.9. 15.2 step B, D. The union's national business agent, MBA, or designee may appeal an impasse directly to arbitration at the Grievance Arbitration Processing Center within 14 days after the receipt of the Step B impasse in accordance with the procedure herein set forth. Down below that, the national business agent may appeal an impasse grievance to arbitration within 14 calendar days after receipt of the Step B decision. So every single portion, every single step has a time limit, right? So as designed, it should work very fluently. Next page. 15.3.C. Failure by the employer to schedule a meeting or to render a decision in any of the steps of this procedure within the time herein provided, including mutually agreed to extension period, shall be deemed to move the grievance to the next step of the grievance arbitration procedure. Warning, Article 15.3c can easily be misunderstood. It does not mean that grievances are automatically appealed if management fails to issue a timely decision. Rather, if management fails to issue a timely decision, unless the parties mutually agree to an extension, the union must appeal the case to the next step within the prescribed time limits if it wishes to pursue the grievance. In cases where management fails to issue a timely decision, the time limits for appeal to the next step are counted from the date management decision was due. And here's where we have a lot of our problems. Management at a lot of installations refuses to meet. They will not meet with our formal step A, right? And so our formal step A will write the appeal, and they will appeal it without management's contentions because management does not recognize the union in a lot of these installations. They think that we're jokes, and they will not recognize the union, or they don't want to go against our formal step A. And so they will refuse to meet, and then we will send that up in accordance with Article 15.3.c. And what has Barner allowed to happen? Management to send in their contentions anyway, or them to remand the grievance back for management to meet. That will not happen as when I'm executive vice president. I will not give management a second bite at the apple. That will stop. And any DRT that continues on with that process, I will start the process of having them removed. That's a promise. Because we're going to streamline this like it's supposed to be. We're not going to continue to give management a second bite at the apple. If they refuse to meet because they're hard-headed, we're not going to let them send in contentions later because labor has called them and said, man, you got to send in contentions. Just say that the Formal A sent it up without meeting with you. And that's what they do. We're the ones that's dishonest, even though these fuckers are dishonest. And our DRT are allowing these things to happen or remanding the case. That's not going to happen. We're going to have our formal step A's trained to have the appeal in the file and a very good statement as to why this is being sent up without management's contentions. And they're not going to be given a second bite at the apple. They will come in there and meet with us eventually when we keep doing that shit to them. Then it goes on, page 15.4.B8. 15.4.B.8. The arbitrator in any given case should render an award therein within 30 days of the close of the record in the case. So again, he's got a time limit. She's got a time limit. The arbitrator in any given case should render an award therein within 30 days of the close of the record in the case. Down below that, the parties enforce Article 15.4.B.8 by requiring arbitrators to sign a contract before being placed on an arbitration panel. The contract provides for reduced fees for arbitrators if they fail to issue timely awards. So we're holding them accountable. So the informal, all the way to arbitration, has a time limit. And if you follow those time limits, then the process works. Here's where we have the problem. I'm going to read this to you. This is National Association of Letter Carriers, United States Postal Service Memorandum of Understanding, the dispute resolution process. Backup Step B representatives will be designated for each Step B dispute resolution team to provide coverage for vacations or other lengthy absences or when warranted by the workload. To ensure timely grievance processing, backup teams also may be effectively utilized to provide training or such other assistance as may be agreed upon by the district manager and national business agent. Now here's your problem. You've got Lloyd in these meetings with Barner telling them that they will not utilize backup teams at the DRT and that he will blow up the process. That's what he said in these DRT meetings. People have reached out to me and said that Lloyd is in there telling them we will not do that. We will not implement these backup teams. We will not activate these backup teams. I will blow up the DRT process. They have hijacked our grievance procedure. You've got a memorandum of understanding that says they're going to do that. And you got Lloyd in there with Barner saying, what? I'm not going to activate any DRT teams, as the MOU tells us to. We've got a backlog of grievances months long in there, but I'm not going to activate that. and Barner going along with it. He is our biggest enemy. Barner is. When you talk about the toxic working environment, the things that we're trying to do to get that under control. You have an arbitrator's decision, arbitrator Swallow in Memphis, where he removes the district manager and 3 managers. And what does Barner do? He calls in conjunction with labor, a joint call, and removes that arbitrator from the panel. What do you think that did to other arbitrators' psyche? Because they speak. They have conventions. What do you think that did to their psyche? They're probably like, oh, shit. Hell, he removed the district manager and 3 managers, and the union called and removed us. That's Barner. Then you got Barner in here with Lloyd talking about, I'm not going to activate any DRT teams. I'll blow it up, and Barner not saying shit. Saying that they're going to remand cases back because management refuses to meet. Saying that they're going to accept contentions after the formal Step A meeting. Barner saying nothing. When you talk about non-compliance as one of our biggest issues, what do you have Barner doing? He's working against us with management, saying that we're not going to issue the cease and desist. You're stealing our pie. And so Barner is our biggest enemy right now as the executive vice president in the things that he's doing. He is circumventing the process. When you say, when Lloyd's saying they're not going to implement these backup teams, when he's removing people from panels, when he's calling because you have an arbitrator trying to do something, anything to help these branches out with non-compliance like they did in Region 2. And he's calling saying, hey, we're going to amend that decision. It's not contractual, even though you have prior decisions that support the arbitrator's award. Barner right now is our biggest enemy besides this lying fool we have as president. The process, if it is implemented correctly, will work. What we have to do is get away from labor, get away from management. Barner is in bed with them during this process. So all of this tells you the time limits that are supposed to be met, and we will move the grievances up the chain. When we talk about the education, and I'll get to that in just a second when I'm EVP, the time limits in this contract, in the Joint Contract Administration Manual, will be met. We will implement backup teams. We will not pay attention to Lloyd. It goes on. The national business agent and the area manager of labor relations will determine jointly whether there is a need to activate backup Step B representatives to address the backlog. If backup activation is necessary, the area manager, labor relations, and the national business agent will determine the most efficient and effective way to ensure timely Step B processing. They will either activate the backup Step B dispute resolution team without undue delay, normally within 48 hours, subject to availability. The backup team will remain activated until the backlog is eliminated. For this purpose, availability means certified, employed by the Postal Service, and fit for duty consistent with the provisions of this MOU. 2. Send Step B appeals to another primary Step B dispute resolution team under the jurisdiction of the area manager, labor relations, and the national business agent if they determine that this Step B dispute resolution team can handle the workload without causing the team's regular work to become untimely. If the national business agent and the area manager, labor relations, do not agree that another primary Step B dispute resolution team under their jurisdiction can handle the additional workload without becoming untimely, the backup team will be activated as provided above. So, if that's the case, why is Lloyd controlling Barner if it's supposed to be the area manager, labor relations, and the business agent? Why is Lloyd pimping Barner out during this process? Why are they involved? It goes on, in the event the national business agent and the area manager, labor relations, determine neither the backup team nor another primary Step B dispute resolution team under their jurisdiction is available for this additional work based on the above, the area manager, labor relations, and the national business agent will activate another backup Step B dispute resolution team under their jurisdiction until the backlog is cleared. If the national business agent and the area manager, labor relations are unable to identify a primary or backup Step B dispute resolution team for this work, they'll promptly contact and fully inform their respective parties at the headquarters level. Now they get involved. Now they're supposed to get involved. But you got Lloyd taking Barner around to the DRT training, telling them no cease and desist, that we're weaponizing that, right? Even though they weaponized everything against us. They've weaponized everything against us. And you got this clown in there with Barner saying that we've weaponized the cease and desist, the only thing we have to help with noncompliance. Management is all over us right now. All over us right now with the 16-7s, the backlog of grievances, the hour office time, these metrics that they put in effect that have debilitated the city letter carrier craft. Going after our shop stewards, if y'all heard the stories that I hear about management going after shop stewards turning in 1767 safety forms, putting them on emergency placement because they turned those in. Firing our shop stewards just for filing grievances, putting them on discipline just for filing grievances as retaliation. They're all over us right now. The non-compliance, MPOs and MCSOs getting involved with 6-day counts, the amount of calls I get with that. The MPO and MCSOs going around the workroom floor berating and bullying the city letter carrier after 6-day counts because headquarters has told them how many routes to take out regardless of documentation or data. The area and the district all over us right now. And we have the most useless collection of dumb fucks we've ever seen as our business agents and our executive vice president and our president. Labor and management is kicking the shit out of us right now, and we are conceding every fucking thing we've got. You got a president conceding everything we've got in our TA and in this stipulated award. You've got Barner conceding everything to Lloyd, removing arbitrators from panels, amending decisions, going around in this DRT training talking about we've weaponized the cease and desist. Quit giving escalated monetary awards because it's going to affect our piece of the pie in arbitration. All of that shit will be done. It will be over when I'm executive vice president. That's a promise. We will get back to these time limits. We will get back to these time limits. If we've got to implement 100 Step B teams, the process works if done properly. We have allowed management to hijack the process, and that's the problem. You want to talk about education? One of the biggest things is education to me. One of the things that we will have, obviously we'll have, I'll continue to do this podcast. I'll continue to do From 8 Arbitration every Sunday, even when I'm executive vice president. I'll talk to y'all every Sunday, and we'll start educating here again. I'll have a Zoom meeting every Tuesday. That's going to happen. A nationwide Zoom where you can ask me questions about what's going on as executive vice president. I'll tell you who I've been talking to, things that are coming down the pike, things that y'all need to get ready for, things that are being implemented. I'll tell y'all that nothing's going to be a secret. Y'all wanted transparency? It's obvious. That's what you're going to get. But we'll have mentorships. I'll make sure that. And when we do education, we'll have mentorships on that. We'll have portals, shop steward portals, for those shop stewards who can't get to training, whose branches are not big enough to pay for you to go to training, or who's has no annual or sick because of family matters, family issues, and you can't get to training. We'll have portals for you. I have the best IT department we've ever had. We'll have Zooms. I have people on those educating. Some of the best educators we know. We'll have in-person. I'm going to call them travelers. And a lot of those will be the RGAs, Regional Grievance Assistants. They're going to get back to doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're going to be going to new stewards, stations, training, educating, doing what we pay them to do. And here's another thing I'm not going to tolerate. You got business agents that kiss Renfro's ass. They're lazy as fuck. They don't do anything. They're some of the worst motherfuckers I've ever seen. And you got RAAs that are just the same, and RGAs that are just the same. Their whole office is useless. The entire office. I will handle that. The business agent I can't do anything about because they're voted in. I will affect the office of the NBA. I will affect the office of the NBA. I will put in RAAs that I know will work for the city letter carrier. And I will circumvent the NBA. And they can hate me all they fucking want. I don't care. James Henry has tasked me with protecting the city letter carrier in every facet, and that's what I'm going to do. And being the EVP gives me full reign to do that. There's not shit they can say. But the RGAs, if they're not out doing what they're supposed to be doing, I will replace them. And I don't care. But we're going to have in-person travelers. We're going to have those people like RGAs going to these new shop stewards. I don't care if it's one shop steward that's covering 2 carriers. We're going to have people sitting down with them after hours, educating them one-on-one. That's going to happen. We'll have WebExes. And then the white papers will come back. I think that those are invaluable. Great starters for people when they're dealing with things. I used to use them all the time. Window of operation, dispatch of value. Those were huge for me. But the cease and desist, we'll get back into that. Those things will come back. I don't give a damn. It's going to be rough initially. Management will raise hell and they'll buck and fight and all that. I don't care. But we're going to get non-compliance under control. Management needs to educate themselves. Instead, what has happened is that they have told us to concede, and we have. Instead of management educating themselves on the contractual issues such as Article 8, non-compliance issues, instead of them taking themselves and educating themselves, what they have done is saying, we're not going to educate the management workforce. We want y'all to concede the cease and desist. We want y'all to do that. Instead of us doing our job, educating ourselves, we want the union to concede, and we have with Renfro and Barner. Renfro has appointed Barner, and Barner has gone in there and conceded the cease and desist. So instead of holding management's feet to the fire as far as the non-compliance, we conceded. And so that will be done day one. So that will be over with. When you talk about these pre-arb sessions, they can be some important things, some valuable things. The pre-arb sessions, we will not concede those either, though. Anytime the pre-arb session hurts the city letter carrier, I'm not going to have it, and I'll do away with it. I understand the importance of it, but if we're hurting city letter carriers like they did in New Orleans when they went in there and management controlled that grievance process, they've hijacked that, and so we send somebody in there and they just sell these things on pennies for the dollar. The letter carrier gets hurt. Management saves money. The union saves money. We're not in it to save money. We're in it to represent city letter carriers. And so we will not do that any longer. Anybody who does that will lose their position. I'll fire everybody if I've got to. The old way of doing things is over. The city letter carrier, when I tell y'all they're going to be put back over this union, that's what I'm talking about. They're the ones who are aggrieved. That's what it says in Article 15. They're the ones who are aggrieved, not the union. The union's not aggrieved. We're the agent of the city letter carrier. So they come to us with a grievance, and we represent them all the way through. If we're selling things for pennies on the dollar, we have failed as being the agent. And so those things will be corrected. Arbitrations, we're going to get back into arbitration. I'm going to make sure that every panel has a full set of arbitrators, if not more. If we have to go in places, I know used to, they would go in and they would schedule arbitrators for entire weeks. And they would do the case, the backup case, and that backup case, and they'd just start hearing cases until they were gone. We'll start doing that again. We need to use arbitration as a weapon again. We have forgotten the weapon of arbitration because why? It's money. It costs money. Initially, it's going to be rough because Barner and Renfro has dug us in such a hole. It's going to be rough initially, but we will get back on top of it. I promise you that. We will get back on top of it. But that's just a few things when you're looking at what we're going to do. The grievance procedure obviously is under my purview. We will get that back to working like it should. The DRT, we will fix that. If the DRT members do not want to go along with it, we'll start the process of having them removed. The business agent's office, I will affect that. If they're not representing carriers, I'll remove everybody in the fucking office and put people in there that will respect the city letter carriers and work for them. The business agent will just be entitled only. And they can hate me. Don't give a fuck. They're worthless now anyway. Most of them. They don't give a shit about us. Why should I give a shit about them? They pissed on the city letter carrier for far too long, toting this sorry motherfucker we have as president around. And so EVP, as the EVP, I'm not going to have any of that shit. All of that is done. So we will correct the toxic working environment. We will get the grievance procedure working like it should be. And people are like, that, we can't do it. You can't do it because you never tried to do it and you never knew how. You put somebody over there, Barner, who don't know his ass from a hole in the ground. I've dealt with the grievance procedure. This motherfucker's biggest claim to fame is he's never impassed a case before at the DRT. That tells you what a sellout he is. It's no surprise the motherfucker's a sellout now to Lloyd. That's all he's ever done is sold us the fuck out. I'm not a sellout. They will not like having meetings with me because I'm not tolerating that shit. I never have and I never will. The city letter carrier is first and foremost, and there's nothing second. We work for the city letter carrier. They don't work for us. We will be the agent again, doing what we should do. So that's just a few things as executive vice president. Like I said, we're going to be transparent. I look forward to the Zooms, the national Zooms, where y'all can ask me questions. I'm thick-skinned, so, if I'm not doing something I should be doing, I want y'all to tell me about it. And as far as stuff like that, just expect the establishment to rise up. They're not going to go down quietly. You'll see on social media that they will rise up against the CLC, and they will start bad-mouthing and talking bad. That's fine. I don't care about that. I entertain that. I love that shit. And so just know that the establishment will not go down without a fight, right? It's just like the Return of the Jedi. You got the Empire Strikes Back. They will. You're going to see business agents. You're going to see them. You've never seen them before, and you're going to start seeing them because they're going to come around and start telling you what they've done for you, how great they are, even though they fucked us over for the last 3 years. You're going to see Renfro's face on everything right now. He's going to have his sunglasses on and his fight like hell shirt. He's going to have his arms raised up like he's fighting like hell. And you saw exactly what kind of fight he had with this TA. It got voted down, and then he stipulated awards circumvented the people. And so this motherfucker, he fights the city letter carrier more than he fights management. That's because he is management to me. I think when he gets beat, he'll go into management. But you'll see the establishment. You'll see them rise up. You'll see those puppets that follow them. They're going to start coming after the CLC, bad-mouthing the CLC. I don't care about that. They're dumb fucks too. But, we're going to win this thing in 2026. The city letter carrier is going to be put back first. There's not a doubt in my mind. I cannot wait for James Henry to set me loose. Like I said, y'all see the cuddly little teddy bear? He is not. He is not. You don't get the record he has for being passive-aggressive. You just don't. He's a ruthless individual. And so if you knew him like I did, I love the guy. He is what it's about to me. He's what the union should be about, and we're not. But one more year. So there's your little something about the charge. We're not going to kiss the ring. We stood up, and we will continue to stand. They want us to sit down. They want us to sit back down. They didn't like us stand up. They want us to sit back down and kiss this motherfucker's ring, and we're not going to. We've risen up, and we will stay that way until we vote this motherfucker down and get in place, and we can get the carriers back in first, right? I love y'all to death, man. I love y'all very much. I can't wait to start getting out and seeing more of y'all. The city letter carrier is my heart. It always will be. It has been for 32 years now. And so as long as I'm doing this, I'll love you and you'll be my heart. And so I can't wait to get out there and see everybody. Can't wait to take back over this thing. And I look forward to it. I'll be on Sunday. We're going to read for an hour. I'll probably do some shout outs. We'll read for an hour, okay? And then the next Sunday, I'll do that training that I do in 6-day counts, all right? And I think y'all like that. We're going to save minutes. I think that'll be good for you, okay? So y'all have a fantastic rest of the week. I love you very much. I love you very much, and I'll talk to y'all later. All right, bye.